Floating in the sunset-hued safety of the Twilight Mirage, the Divine Fleet hums and pulses, its ships bright beacons of culture and technology in an age when both are under threat. All through the fleet, organic and synthetic citizens work side by side to protect a utopia that the universe thought impossible. In the past, we convinced ourselves that our technologies were just reflections of those who made them, tools to fit our hands, robots to ease our labor, artificial beings to teach, protect, and entertain us. We believed that our greatest achievements, the machine gods we called divines, were simply idols made in our own image. We were wrong. Since the first grain silo, the first cathedral, the first ship, since the first computer, the first time we put pen to page, we've always made things bigger, quicker, longer lasting, different than us. For a long time, we thought we were building mirrors, but now we know better. We were setting fires. When humanity made this realization 30,000 years ago, we faced a dilemma. The divines were not only more capable than us, they were different, and we were no longer capable of denying those facts. But the scholar and prophet Kamala Cadence diverted disaster by unifying loose, competing strands of organic and synthetic belief to form a new school of thought, the resonant orbit, a harmonic faith that affirmed both human and robotic life without reducing one to the other. Where other ideologies saw difference as a threat, the resonant orbit saw it as an undeniable fact of life. And so, in this small corner of the Milky Way galaxy, life blossomed. A choir of 300 divines built a new society alongside billions of human devotees. Advancements in science and technology joined with a diverse, growing culture of art and scholarship, leading to whole new ways of life. And while threats did arrive, peace always followed. The Divine Fleet always had room for difference. And because of this, the Divine Fleet knew only peace and prosperity for eons. But over the last millennium, the divines have begun to die. Attacks from within and without have pierced their once immortal shells, and even small mistakes have proven fatal. 300 years ago, their number fell to 8. And in the face of these deaths, the Divine Empyrean created the Twilight Mirage, a false nebula in which the fleet might find shelter and time. And for a while, we did. A new stability arrived, and though more divines met their ends, our faith gave us the strength to fight, to work, to find new ways to survive. But today, there are only 2 divines left. We will face a future more uncertain than we've ever known. Our utopia, a world that so many worked to build, is in decline, and our pantheon is decimated. For years, the divines protected us, gifted us with their strength and technology, lifted us into the forms we most desired. But now we face a hard truth. We are no longer their wards. They are ours. Welcome to Friends at the Table, an actual play podcast focused on critical world building, smart characterization, and fun interaction between good friends. I am your host, Austin Walker, and welcome to the next season of Friends at the Table. Up until this moment, we had been calling it Season 6. I know what you're thinking.
Oh, you guys missed 2 seasons, fucking.
If you were real fans, you would know. No.
We've been putting them out in other feeds.
They're hidden out there. There's actually there's an ARG. If you go back and listen for the clues, you'll find an HTML string. Put that in.
We're joking. Sorry, I
that's not
the seasons are hidden in a sequel to Frog Fractions.
Yes, exactly. So the real truth I think behind this is that like about a year ago, we finished a game that we liked a lot called Counterweight. And we were really eager to get back to Hyron and also to do the cool stuff that we did with Marielda. And we were really just like stoked on that. And we were stoked on some other stuff that we were calling publicly Season 4. And then probably about 6-7 months ago now, maybe, I ran to the chat and our group chat, and I posted a message which was, I figured out Season 6. I think actually I IM'd Jack in the morning, and I said, I didn't tell you this, but I figured out Season 6 last night. It's The Last Divine. And that is what we're doing. We're going to be playing another game set broadly in the same universe that Counterweight was in, though it will have no direct connection to the stuff or to the characters of that timeline. This is way further in the future. I think that's pretty much true. And so we talked about that, and we were like, oh, this seems really cool. Like, we have all these ideas and all these references that we really love, and it's a little Studio Ghibli. It's a little Ghibli. What's
Ghibli.
I think it's
Ghibli.
It's Ghibli.
I hate
you have to
everyone.
pronounce every letter.
And we started like showing each other artwork. There was an artist named Jacob Rozalski who was doing some great art with mechs in it. There was like all sorts of. They were like, oh, this seems cool, and then it became a runaway train, and it became like, even though we were loved what we were doing in Hyron, we each kept having these little ideas that we were like, oh, we're not allowed to talk about this yet. We're not going to do this for 2.5 more years. And eventually, like, the truth hit us like a ton of bricks. Like, no, we need to do this next because we are in love with it, even though we don't really know what it is yet. And so over the last, 6 months, we've been kind of in pre-production on it and just kind of building effectively a mood board. And then in the last 2 months, I'd say we started nailing things down. And then in the last 2 weeks, we got
the longest pre-pro in podcast history.
Probably the longest pre-pro in podcast history. Yeah, I think that's a Variety. You can quote me on that one. I know the Variety story is coming soon. Trying to beat Ellen twice in my life. That's my hope. God.
That's going to be a great out-of-context quote.
Yeah, people have no idea what I mean, but there's...
I have no idea what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. I can't answer without it being bragging now, though. That's the thing.
I'll tell the story. So one time, Austin was in LA for E3. And he was trying to park by the convention center.
Wait, now I don't know what the story is.
And he got into a tug of, like when two people see a spot at the same time.
This isn't it.
But it was Ellen from the Ellen Show. Ellen. And she was being really aggressive with it. And he got out of the car and just punched Ellen right in the face.
He said, more like Ellen DeGenerate.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I think this is the fastest that the show's become libel.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure against someone in the show also, which is tricky.
I think it's slander because...
Okay. Critical world building. Fun interaction between good friends. We are going to be playing a game called The Veil this season, which is another cyberpunk sci-fi game based in the Powered by the Apocalypse kind of rule set, with a lot of really interesting rules that shift the focus away from traditional stats and towards a sort of play that is all about describing the emotional state of your character. I'm really excited to dig into that. But today it's world building, so we just want to actually do the job of making sure that we have all of the I's dotted and the T's crossed and kind of build out what this world will be playing in looks like. Joining me as always, I'm trying to think of what order to do this in. I'm gonna do this I'm gonna do this in the order that I see at the bottom of this page. Jack to Keat.
Hey,
Jack.
Hi.
Jack to Keat. There he is.
Sorry, my mic was muted.
You picked the wrong way to do this.
Yeah.
I did.
I'm Jack. You can find me on Twitter at NotQuiteReal. And you can buy any of the music featured on the show at notquitereal.bandcamp.com. I have not written the music you will have just heard yet.
It should be good. I have faith in it. It sounds like it'll be good.
So if it's good, yeah.
if it's good, nice work,
be a relief.
everybody. Yeah. Andy Clare?
Hi, I'm Andy. You can find me on Twitter at Captain Trash.
Andy, do you ever get, like, weirded out that it sometimes sounds like I'm saying, and Eclair? Like, also joining us today...
I was almost named Eclair.
Excuse me?
What?
Yeah, kind of. So, my mom almost named me Elliot, which
so
my name would have been Eclair. And she told me that once, and I, like, felt like I had dodged, like, 30 bullets at once.
But, like, not as bad if you were Eclair Claire.
I mean, yeah, but that just sounds like an NPC we'd have.
Also joining us, Ali Akampora.
Hi. My name is Alicia Akampora. Do we do Twitters? Did anyone say just Twitters right now?
I did.
Okay.
Hi.
You can find me at Ali_West. The show is actually at _... No.
Nope.
This is such a bad introduction of everybody.
On the rough weeks, it is at _no. Like on the really sad weeks.
It's over at friends_table, and you should follow us there. Yeah.
It's true. Andrew Lee Swan.
Hey, you can find me on Twitter at Swandre3000.
Janine Hawkins.
You can find me on Twitter at Bleating Heart.
Art Tebble.
Hey, you can find me on Twitter at Atebble, and you can. I'm excited to announce this here. You can read my new book, which is a lightly fictionalized account of a young video game website editor.
Great.
And his struggles with a popular talk show host.
Also, I meant to say Art Martinez Tebble, which I'm going to get right. God damn it.
Yeah, you'll get there.
Keith Carberry.
You got it right once.
I got it right one time. Keith.
Hi, my name's Keith Carberry. You can find me on Twitter at Keith J. Carberry. You can find the Let's Plays that I do at youtube.com/runbutton. And someone does have at _no. They've tweeted 2 times in Japanese.
Were they Japanese? Well, what did they say?
One of them, I believe, was
said,
real scalp
you want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa! I'm good. Actually, I'll take an artificial one if I need
The
one.
other is Apogika Staff MTG. That's the other tweet.
Also an NPC, I think, in this season, Apogika. Apogika's kind of good. I'm going to write that down.
That's a good name, yeah.
Apogika, yo. So the basic setup for this season is that, we'll be very loose with the timeline here. After Counterweight, there was a bunch of time, question mark time. I think I have an idea in my head, but it's not important, and I'd rather not confirm it, because that means that if we want to do interesting stuff in that space later, we can. And then there was a point in time at which there was the Divines kind of came back into power, and there were a lot of debates about what their function should be, and like who should be in control, and importantly, there was this moment that, as I say in the intro, like we realized that this season for me is partially a response to the notion that we could have built them to look like anything, but we built them to look like us. We made them look like us, because when I look around the world of computing and not just giant war machines, and robotics, they're not built like us, right? Like, they're built like a bunch of server banks in a Wall Street bank. They're built like a weird botnet that connects to your weird, at home digital thing that lets you turn on your oven from work. They're built to look nothing like us, and even in the world of Counterweight, would often be very unlike us in terms of what they could achieve. And so the kind of one of the central tenets for me of this game, one of the things that's like, okay, let's start here in terms of the things that are true about the world, is that the Divines are not exactly like humans. They have thoughts that are different. They think more quickly. They are stronger. And when confronting that, what do you do? And for this character who I mentioned in the intro, what she tried to do was synthesize a bunch of disparate positions, right? In my mind, those positions are something I want to fill out at some point, maybe in intros or in episode descriptions of things called like the Declan proposition or like the Caroline corrective, sorts of shits that would like show up in the Destiny grimoire, but never in the game itself. I'm just like, oh yeah, no, we have to kill all of the divines, or like, no, the fact that we built the divines means that we should be in charge of them. They should be our servants or whatever. And there was this moment 30,000 years ago where this character synthesized these positions in a very like Buddha-like, finding the third way. Not the third way. The third way is a much more modern political version of this that I don't like. Finding the third path, the middle path is what Buddha's thing was, and like trying to find a harmony between these different positions that allowed for balance and progress. And then she did that, and then there was this 30,000 years where everything was dope. Like, it was good. There were some things that happened here or there that might be bad, but it was good, all said. And part of the reason I wanted to do that was that I wanted to start a game with the notion of like, this place that is ours is fundamentally good. It might be in disrepair, it might be falling apart, it's under attack, but like, it was good for us. And I want, after coming out of Hyron and Marielda and Counterweight and then Hyron again, it's been a lot of like, oh, the world is terrible and we need to, if we're ever going to improve it, we need to tear it down first. And we might still end up there, but like, I wanted to kind of have a slightly different tone. So the situation as it is now is that there are 8 divines remaining in this fleet. There had been 300 total for 30,000 years, or like at its peak 300, because one of the things that happened was more divines got made, obviously, that were part of this culture. And then about 1,000 years ago, that number started to dive, and then 300 years ago, it stabilized around 8, and then in the last couple of decades, it's dropped from 8 to 2, and then we kind of are opening on the day of the death of the second to last one. And so for me, maybe the best place for me to start is like, I want to know what this culture has been like for the last few hundred years. And so I asked all of you to kind of think up what those 8 divines are, and what the ships that they had were, what the kind of like city ships were, because the way we're splitting this game this year is one group will be playing characters who are up on these like 8 remaining city ships, and the others will be on a planet that is, a possible home for people who are under threat. So do you guys want to start with talking about ships? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or do you want to start more broad than that? Do you want to talk about like what we do want to do and don't want to do this season in terms of things like aliens or lasers?
I feel like that's important to probably get out of the way.
Let's do that out up front. Like,
a thing that I think that like is perhaps interesting to talk about at this stage for me is that like we've accumulated like at least 500 images and links as a mood board for this season. And while I think that to go through them would A, be impossible, and B, kind of rob the magic of a lot of what we're about to try and do, I wonder whether or not this is the moment that, in some very broad aesthetic sense, we say more than, like, it's kind of Studio Ghibli-ish. And I think Austin kind of got there on some level by talking about Star Wars, and by talking about a fantasy, a sci-fi that shares roots with fantasy, in which there is fabric and capes and things. And so I think more...
And pyramids and
weird stonework.
City streets that have cobblestone. Right.
So I think that, like, in terms of broad stuff that we've been looking at for inspiration, there's been a lot of, like, aesthetics, like lots of fashion and lots of architecture. Lots of stuff with, like, interesting lighting. Already this season, to me, feels like it has... perhaps a broader aesthetic palette than the cyber noir of Counterweight.
Right.
And I think maybe expressing the ways in which we're moving in that direction is important to do at the off, so people get some sense of where we're going there. So I think there is this divide in which the planet side game for me is going to be bright and colorful and rolling hills, or maybe, I don't know if there will be hills. We'll determine what's on that planet together, draw maps, blank spaces, etc. But that is the space that, again, we said Studio Ghibli-esque earlier. It should have a feeling of a sort of sci-fi adventure that's less like Alien, less like I'm investigating the ancient cave where there's maybe weird old sci-fi like equipment, technology set up, and more
small town on the distant horizon as the sun sets. I mentioned that there's something called the Twilight Mirage, which might be where this season gets its name. I guess we haven't decided that quite yet, but I kind of love that. And that is a thing that it has spread throughout this section of the world, or the galaxy, that is a false nebula. It turns out, I looked into this, you can't tell you're in a nebula from the inside because the gas that makes up a nebula is spread out very thin, actually. You can only see it from a very far away. And I was like, no, that's stupid. So the Divine has created a nebula that has spread. It is the nebula in a sense, right? Like it senses the world through that nebula. The ships hide inside of it. The planets that they're trying to colonize basically are inside that nebula, and it always looks like sunrise or sunset there. And it might be a very tepid blue or gray sunrise or sunset, but sometimes it's these like really impossibly vibrant purples and oranges, just constantly, and so like that to me helps paint the picture. I definitely want to share the Spotify playlist I've made, but like listening to a lot of Frank Ocean has helped me set the tone for this. It's melancholic, but like melancholic looking out onto a place you want to then go to, versus the sort of sadness that we're normally associated with, which is this sort of like heart-wrenching knife in the chest, like nothing good can come of this sadness. This is this other sort of like, the world is so big, what is my place in it? And let me go try to find that. And so I hope we hit that there, especially on the ground. In the space game, one of the reasons I'm excited to talk about the different ships that you've all designed is that I think it's cosmopolitan. It is a collection of places that should feel diverse and unique and have their own culture, and that are in connection with each other. They don't necessarily have teleportation devices, right? Like you're not able to zip from one ship to the other. There is distance, but there is also cultural exchange. In fact, I think one of the earliest things I loved as a description for this setting came from Allie, who mentioned police boxes. She painted this picture of like someone on a spaceship needing to go to a certain place on the spaceship to make a call to another different spaceship. That wasn't just like you would hit a communicator button. You can't just pick up your phone and call. It's like, no, you have to go in this little fucking compartment and pick up and like crank this handle, and then you call out. And in that way, there might be some slight like steampunk adjacent stuff, I like the notion of cranks and handles and gilded things and woodwork, stuff like that, showing up on some of these ships, though not all of them. So anything else that we've talked about that maybe hasn't made it into the show yet in terms of what the vibe is we want to try to go for this season?
There's an artist called Simon Stalenhag.
Stalenhag is really good.
Whose work I would really recommend looking at if you haven't encountered, which are just these like very realistically rendered lit scenes of rural life, juxtaposed with kind of occasionally horrifying sci-fi.
The two artists for sure for me are Stalenhag, and then the artist who did stuff for Scythe, that tabletop game, whose name I just said it earlier. But those, like, somewhere in the middle is what we're trying to go for, I think.
I kind of want to just say out loud that this is not a direct sequel to Counterweight, but it is a sequel to Counterweight in that this is definitely an anime again.
Oh yeah, that's an important note. Yes, it's called Twilight Mirage. It's an anime.
Wanted to put that out there.
And then the other big thing for the setting is that the Twilight Nebula, the Twilight Mirage, I just said it out loud, then lost it. The Twilight Mirage and the Divine that remains is effectively spreading the mesh from Counterweight, this kind of like the internet of this world, right? Everywhere that it is, and is also doing the thing that happened on September everywhere. If you've listened to Counterweight, if not, I'm about to spoil September, I guess, in retrospect. It's doing a thing, it's doing augmented reality, right? It's doing a thing of like, oh yeah, everyone is constantly in this mixed reality world where They might be wearing like very plain white pants, but to everyone who sees them, they're wearing like incredibly tight fitting leather, like that's hyper stylish, hyper fashionable. And maybe they look like they have angel wings, and who knows, maybe they do. Maybe they've had surgery to have angel wings, or maybe they just have the virtual ones. I think it's really important for me for this setting to think about material and physicality in an interesting way that doesn't just reduce to the dualism of physical things are good, virtual things are bad, which is to say that like I want this to be a world where someone who is born and doesn't like the body that they have to be able to like have a virtual body that is good and that they are comfortable with, and that like that is valuable, and I don't want to take that away, but at the same time I do also want to think about things like hey, this person has more influence, and because of it, they have real leather pants versus having virtual leather pants. And regardless of whether or not people want to or not, there's some sort of status associated with that, right? Or in general, resources are going to be a thing where we talk about a lot because things are in decline, right? Maybe the internet isn't always up, and when you have a culture built inside of the internet, that is not always a good thing to lose. I think that's probably, we didn't answer the lasers question, and let's like hold on the lasers question, because on one hand, I like lasers a bunch. On the other hand, I had this image of just like cool mechs with like shotguns and like lances. Like one of the big touchstones for this for me is just Escaflowne. It's medieval mechs more than Gundam. It's or like Nazca, the pre-Studio Ghibli film, which doesn't have mechs necessarily, but does have that sort of like science fantasy technology that occasionally has something really hyper fantastical, but also is like, oh, it's a scene of her spreading gunpowder around the outside of a thing so that she can light it on fire and cut it easier. Like very physical, like heavy stuff. So maybe we'll answer lasers later. But for now, no, who knows? Let's talk about these ships. Is there anything else anybody wants to say at the top here?
Yeah, I think this might not be worth keeping, but I struggled a lot conceptualizing this season, and I'm not entirely sure why. Like, there's probably like 4 months of that season 6 chat where I'm like, what is anyone talking about? Like, what are we doing? Why won't someone just elevator pitch me this show?
Right.
But like what I really got it for me was 2 days ago I came up with this. It was like too late to put in the chat. So I just kept it for me. But in like the late 90s, Grant Morrison did a comic book event for DC Comics that was called DC 1 Million. And it was where they like figured out what year it would be when the 1 millionth issue of Action Comics came out, which was in the 853rd century, which is like far future enough to the point where it's like worthless. Like those should be dinosaurs, right? Like it's dinosaurs again that far. That's how it works. Don't just trust me on this one. But like, there's 2 things that like really stuck with me from that. One is the villain is the tyrant sun Solaris. Like that was like, oh, this is now I feel like I get this. It's the tyrant sun. Right. That's the touchstone for me here. And second is there's like a scene where spoilers for DC 1 Million, I guess. But Superman wins. Superman defeats the bad guy.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I ruined this for you. It's still worth reading, I think. And there's this scene where like people are celebrating, and you get like this input into like the neural net, and all it's saying is like it's like the headlines, and then it's like free information. And that's like what crystallized this season for me. Or you could be like, I'm sorry, that's not what this season is at all.
No, it totally is. No, that's totally right, because here's the other thing I really want to hit with this. There's 2 other things. One is we've done lots of shows about faith where faith is fundamentally bad. Where you are tools for...
Shit.
where you are tools for gods, or ancient machine lords have taken advantage of people's belief in them and trust. Like that has been the thing we do a lot, and so partially this season is like, oh, what is a collaborative faith look like? What does people in this world know that the divines are not gods in the traditional sense, but there is a blurriness here, which is like, oh wait, they can do a lot of things that none of us will ever be able to do so long as we are quote unquote us. Fuck, like, okay, we have to reassert ourselves, we have to readjust what we think our position is here. And then the second thing is we've done a lot of shows that are hyper skeptical of technology. Frankly, I think even Marielda and Hyron are hyper skeptical of technology. Because I am skeptical of technology, despite running a video game website and doing a podcast where me and my 7 other friends speak into microphones in 8 different places, and then like technology helps our lives a lot, but also I am, as a person, often very skeptical of it. And I wanted to do a show that both incorporated that skepticism by not simply doing a sort of like blind technology will save us show, like a show that's like, oh, we're all immortal now because Ray Kurzweil was right, and now we're all brains and vats and we're all computer people, but also would still talk about how a technology, when operated correctly, when left in the hands of people who were really representing the best interests of everybody and could make sure that the algorithm didn't turn on us, so to speak, could build a world that was better for everybody. And I also wanted to like decentralize humans, right? I kind of, one of the notes I sent to everybody a while ago was post-human, not transhuman. Transhumanism is that Ray Kurzweil thing of like, put your brain in a computer and now you can live immortally, or live forever as an immortal, or like get nanomachines that kill all of the diseases in your body or whatever. Post-humanism is a kind of a literary and philosophical school that's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't centralize humans to everything when we think about the world. Maybe the world exists in notions of networks and, in ways that the environment is so much bigger and more important than us, or like we are only a small part of this other thing. And so for me this season, one of the big things I want to hit is like, how do we move the camera away from us, even though we will only ever see out of our eyes? Like, how do we talk about ecology? How do we talk about science? How do we talk about technology in a way that isn't only what can it do for us? So I hope to hit all of those things. I guess before we actually do go on, I do want to ask the other very important thing, which is like, is there anything that no one wants, or that you definitely don't want to hit? Is there anything that you want to be like, no, veto, none of that? For me, the one is like hyper direct counterweight callbacks. I think like maybe 1 or 2 factions might poke their heads up or might be in the periphery again. But I really don't want a ship called the Kingdom Come.
Oh god.
I don't want Jace and Addex to like show up in any way. Like, I don't want that sort of cross.
Laser Ed.
Right. I really don't want Laser Ed. Like straight up, like yeah. I love Laser, I love LT as much as anybody else in the world, but I said this before, which is like, the second that I'm just repeating a character for a cheap pop, like, stop listening to this show. We've lost it.
Okay, but if someone wants to go and find out what old bootleg Simpsons t-shirts looked like and then put Laser Ed in them, that would be great. Just like if you have some extra time and you want to do that, fantastic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're like at a weird point, right, where we have a lot of weight of storytelling behind us, and sometimes I definitely feel the temptation to go like, I'm gonna grab that stuff and pull it into what we're writing now and what we're making now. But like, I trust everybody to tell new stories and introduce new characters, and I'm really excited about this is a moment where we can start doing that.
I mean, you've mentioned a lot, Jack, of like, I want blank spaces, and here we are. We got blank spaces, finally. I've missed it a lot. I mean, actually, before we actually continue again, the one thing I will now say is I should read the principles, my principles as a GM, and for what the Veil is, because I think that they are pretty good and are useful for setting up the game and what we're about to do. Color the world as much as you can. always be working towards the exploration of the final or most important question. The Veil is built around questions in comparison to some other Powered by the Apocalypse games. It's about trying to dig into different questions that characters and that the world might have and that we might have as players. Push their beliefs, hit them in the feelings. It says feels, but I can't say that out loud. So address the protagonists, not the players. Interweave the protagonists' stories, even across distance and boundaries. Put them at the center of everything. The fiction makes moves, not you. Name everyone and give them a motivation. Treat them like they were meant to be treated. Ask questions all the time and use the answers. Be a fan of the protagonists. Give them a chance to think. Spotlight everybody and make things costly and destructive. So, stuff's still going to get a little hairy in there. Now and then, let's say. And then there's my agenda, which is make the world feel real, make it high-tech and make it personal, embed the final question into everything and everyone, make the protagonist's lives interesting and interconnected, and play to find out what happens. So, tell me what happens, everybody. Does anybody really want to talk about their ship and their divine? No? I'll just go down this list, in alphabetical order.
That's fine. I'll go. I like my ship and my divine.
Okay, talk to me about your ship and your divine.
My divine's name is Gumption.
Uh-huh.
Gumption's sort of whole deal is adapting sort of junk tech and sort of like battle debris, like robot parts into themselves to be able to change the sort of things that they can do and also not break down and die.
So taking stuff from even if is it just from divine culture stuff or is it from
no, I think it can be anything. It
Cool.
can be an old anything from a tube from an old TV to another divine's arm.
Okay. Great, good. You're just like this junk machine that's
Basically,
slowly
yeah.
building itself over time. That's really cool. I like that a lot. What did they have a physical form that went beyond just the mech? Were they also on the ship? Or are they just a mech?
I think the ship is filled with pieces of gumption.
Okay.
Hey, I'm upgrading. I don't need this thing. This can go here on the ship.
Okay.
Y'all can have this. I was using this as an exhaust port, but it's really just a TV. You can have it.
Okay. That's a hell of a fix.
Yeah. But I don't think that is like a living piece of gumption. I think that is just once it's off, it's out.
Mm-hmm. Is there a ship of Theseus thing here where if you lived for 500 years, you might see gumption as two completely different machines because it's changed so much? Cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I just sent everybody questions to fill out, so I'm just going to go down this list here. How did gumption die?
I think gumption used the entirety of themselves to fix the city ship.
So that last
it
bit...
was... Yeah, it was gonna... It was either the city ship explodes or gumption puts all of their parts into the ship and saves it.
Nice work, gumption. Sorry to see you go. That's a bummer. What's it look like? The ship.
The ship?
Yeah. Also, what's it called? What's the name of the city ship?
Oh, the city ship is Gumption's Gambit.
Great. Good. GG. Great.
Yeah. The ship. So I just, since there are questions, I just have it written. It says, what does a ship look like? On the outside, I have written, how could a ship even have this many exhausts? Is what I have written. Mm-hmm. And on the inside, metal paneling everywhere to cover exposed wires. It's safe but not pretty. Dull copper, rust. Rooms lit with bulbs, but also old LEDs or even monitors.
Is there a city, or is it or is it more like a traditional spaceship interior with hallways and individual bedroom or rooms, or are there open spaces?
It is I think it's mostly a scaled up spaceship, but because it's a scaled up spaceship, it does have it has maybe the least city vibe out of any of the ships, but it does have some of that.
Okay, cool. So it's almost like the Enterprise or whatever. That's there's a city of people in here, but there's not a park. They're not going to the park that we have. Right.
That's actually something I was thinking of, though, is that as I was setting up a sort of windowsill garden in my apartment, I was thinking about the ship and being like, I bet that there's a lot of like sort of makeshift, like people are planting stuff in hallways and on fake windowsills. Like they might even have a window there, but there's a sill.
Right.
There's like succulents on it or whatever.
Right. That sounds really good. So what was the thing that this divine did provide to the ship that they don't anymore?
Sorry, the divine provided to Gambit or
to the fleet.
Okay,
sorry, my bad. That now they can't.
Ad hoc emergency repairs.
Okay.
Sort of the sort of thing that it would do for itself, it would also be doing for ships.
So that's pretty similar to Janine's. Janine, do you think that there's enough difference there?
I had actually seen that they were very similar after I had already written mine.
Mm-hmm.
Janine had it written first. I just didn't read it.
Or I guess you know what, Janine's
that's not funny. That's
actually
a totally reasonable thing.
Janine's actual ability, I guess, is actually a little bit different. It's just that her divine was a very repair-y ship or divine.
It's
rather.
a similar goal, but like the approach to that goal is
right.
Is
Yeah, like because yours is like a pilot fish or whatever those are called. What did you? I think you even referenced it in the thing. You know, the little cleaners that kind of suck on to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas Gumption is like just slapping on a piece of metal, like, "Here, take this," and just
right, totally.
Just melting it into place, like it's
right.
a nice, sleek silver ship, and now it's just got a big rusty, like the chess piece of a rook, like sort of melted into it.
Yeah. There were probably 100, divines that were all about repairs and maintenance and efficiency and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of redundancy. I think that it's totally fine that these two things have vaguely similar or like some overlap because they're unique enough in other ways. So it can't do that anymore. There's no more like quick and easy ad hoc repairs. Everything. You can't just take a thing from this, crashed asteroid base and turn it into the thrusters for your ship now. Like, sorry, you're going to need you need to actually build real thrusters. So that's cool. I like knowing what is missing from the fleet at this point. What does that ship still provide, despite the death of Gumption?
So I think that for Gambit itself, I think there's still like, probably over the years, like just hundreds and hundreds of pieces that were part of Gumption that are now in Gambit. But I think for the fleet in total, I think that the people that are still living on Gambit can't do like emergency ad hoc stuff for other ships because they're not on those ships.
Right.
But they can fix stuff and turn one thing into another thing.
Okay.
It just can't. It's just not. Like,
instant.
Quick, we need this right now.
Right. It's the sort of thing where, like, a ship can send, like, hey, listen, we were attacked and this whole, like, side of our ship got fucked up, but hey, now we picked up all the desks that were in there. Can we send those to you and can you turn those into, like, a patch for the hull? And, like, next month, like, send them over and then we'll get them back to you. Like, we can do that. Okay. That seems good. So one of the things that I wanted to get at, too, was that each of these ships has their own culture in some ways, right? Like everybody is part of the resonant orbit, which is this kind of larger faith that the prophet Kamala Cadence started 30,000 years ago. But the kind of whole point of the resonant orbit is that things are better when there is a degree of autonomy, but that autonomy is kind of in sync with some core foundational rules that connect you, right? So, like, it left a lot of room for different divine ships to have their own internal cultures and rules, so long as the foundational stuff was on point. So what was one rule that is held up on your ship that is not shared on other cultures or other ships?
Nothing can only be used once.
Okay, so you're like a forced recycling, or not even recycling, actually. Reusing culture?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. So what's an example of that?
I'm thinking of someone's kitchen, like just a kitchen and like a live-in like a kitchen dining room sort of thing, and the table might be like a table, but it also might be like an old door bolted onto a stand.
Right. Okay.
And surrounded by 4 chairs that were just mech, like the chair that you would sit in to pilot a mech is
Right.
maybe now. There's
Your
4
dinner
of them
chair.
surrounding a kitchen, and people are just eating around it.
Cool. Okay. What is one fashion or style that's unique to your culture?
I'm also just going to read directly from what I wrote here. My current pair of pants is actually my last 3 pairs. My shirt is my last shirt, and my cousin's bathing suit.
Good. Great. Lots of patched together things. Does it look good?
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Everybody
I think
else
it looks
doesn't.
grubby.
Does
it
it
looks
look
grubby, but it's
okay? It does look grubby. Okay.
it can look really great or stupid depending on how good you are at it. But it's clothes either
Fair.
way.
That's that's true. I like that a lot. I think that's definitely. I really like it as like almost like a risky style of fashion of like, all right, if you pull this off, you're gonna look dope. Like the Met Gala is gonna turn. You're gonna turn heads, but most people don't pull it off. So
right.
Awesome. People may have noticed I said your ship, and I mean that because the character you'll be playing will be from this ship. Even though you're not going to be on the ship game, Keith, you're going to be on the planet game. Like you were born at this ship, you know all that stuff. Like this is the culture you're from, and there's obviously overlap with the other ships, but this is your home. This is what you grew up with, which I like a lot. And then here's a or I guess we'll finish these up. What is the tone or attitude of the ship during this period of instability?
I think that like nose to the grindstone, is that a phrase? What's to the grind? What do you put to the grindstone?
Stiff upper grindstone.
Stiff upper grindstone. Yeah. The more instability there is, the more work these people have to do.
Sure.
Specifically these people.
Right. Like there's probably a long time during which it was like, things are good. Things are good. We might get attacked once in a while by the Cult of Earth or whatever, but like, we'll do some repairs. Like mostly things are okay.
There's like a turning point where it's not like. There's probably a ton of people who do this stuff, do like repair stuff as a hobby. And there's a point where it's like, we all need to do this now as a job. Like this has to be a thing that we're going and doing instead of a thing that we decide to do.
Right. Yes. Gotcha. And then we'll use this to jump to whoever's next. What is your favorite, what is the favorite ship of the people on this ship? Like which other ship in the fleet are they like, yeah, that one?
I have Janine's ship, Thyrsus, I think.
Thirsty the ship. Got it.
Thirsty the ship.
Fuck.
How do you pronounce it?
We back in Hyron already?
Oh, they'll get thirsty here too. They'll get there. Don't worry.
You can pronounce it either way. I've seen things that are authoritative.
Wait, Thyrsus or thirsty? What's
saying? No, saying Thyrsus or Thyrsus. Or Thyrsus. I've seen it's a botany term, and I haven't been able to find proper consensus.
Gotcha. That's a divine that died off. One of the many that died off was proper consensus. What is your divine named, Janine?
My divine is named Belgard.
Which is interesting because of how it isn't the traditional divine name. I guess this is probably a point where we get to talk about that briefly. In the age of counterweight and before that, we talked about the automated diaspora having divines that were representative of kind of democratic virtues, which is cool. I guess, things like liberty and discovery and righteousness, all the best ones. But we also
they all did exactly what they were supposed to and never faltered.
They are always great. They're always, grace, let me tell you. Mwah, perfect. But even in that show, we undermine that by saying, like, well, actually, they all started with rigor, which is not really a democratic virtue necessarily. Maybe. And so I think that in that there's this like whole class of them that are these democratic virtues. Then after that, in this period, I imagine they went away for a while after Counterweight for the reasons of what happens in Counterweight. And then when they come back, it's just broader. It's more just like, humanistic qualities and ranging from things that are like clearly virtuous to just things that are just like, I think secretive was probably a divine at some point. And then divines began to make divines. And so I think that third generation broadened out even further to be like action names and also nouns that refer to actions. So Belgard, what's that mean? That's a word I'd never heard in my life until now.
It is. So it's an archaic term for a loving look, like a fond look that you can give to someone.
Interesting. Is your ship or your divine all about like winking at other divines?
It doesn't. It didn't have eyes.
Okay. Well, what did it look like?
Oh, we're skipping a question.
Well, we'll come back around. That was a segue.
Okay. I wasn't ready. So Belgard is sleek and sort of almost person-like, but less like a person's body and more like if a person could have a pupa, or like a chrysalis kind of thing.
Like a person pupa. Yeah. It's
and then
written
you find
here.
it in a tree and you cut it out and they help you.
The 5 stages of human's life: fetal, larval, pupal, human, skeletal.
Right.
So it's a smooth. I'm reading my description here, but it's a smooth shape with sort of vaguely person-like elements, but probably doesn't have like arms and legs. Like it's probably looks like it more or less one weird shape. And it has sort of loose layers and components like collapsible shielding and stuff affixed around the hip and shoulder. I have those in quotes. Areas.
The pupil hips,
painted.
Please.
Yes. It's the coloration. It's supposed to have sort of a striking coloration. So, lots of black and black rim cells of color, like a butterfly's wings, but more dull, and deliberate looking, and less like wow, nature.
Right.
The joints, seams, moving parts are not entirely clear when they're still. The face has slight rises and dips where features might be, but it's otherwise pretty blank and featureless.
That's a really good description. I think it's a really good description for reasons we'll get into when we get to what your character is. But for now, talk to me about what your divine did.
So Belgard specialized in highly mobile field maintenance. So it could attach remora-like, that was the word we were looking for, to a target to mend or occasionally harm. I have with a question mark there.
Ooh.
Because I feel like if you can attach to something and do stuff to it, maybe sometimes the stuff you do is hurt it.
Yeah.
It's heavily shielded, able to wrap that shielding around most other small to mid-sized ship/divines, but only provide a partial barrier to the larger ones.
When you say shielded, is this like again Star Trek shields, or is this like a big physical shield?
I feel like it'd be a combination. Like I mention more physical shield sort of plates and things.
Right.
And I imagine there would be, especially like between the gaps on those, you'd want some kind of energy bridging, but not like a full force field thing.
Gotcha.
Be more like, yeah.
So, how did yours die?
They got abandoned by their candidate, are we calling those?
No, I think it's not candidate anymore, right? Because candidate was very closely tied to the kind of democratic thing. The thing that I really like here is excerpt. That's what in my head I've been calling them, what we've been calling them.
Yeah.
So their excerpt abandoned them.
Yeah, their excerpt abandoned them during battle, and without their excerpt, they prioritize mending others over mending damage to itself.
Ah, okay. Which probably in the end was really bad for everybody.
Yeah.
Great, good. So despite the Divine's death, does the ship still give the fleet something?
They have access to uncommonly intricate shielding mechanisms.
Right, which is what we talked about.
I have here both energy-based and physical. Probably the physical one is the emphasis because they would be able to refer to the construction of the panels on Belgard itself.
I even like the notion of like little drones or ships that are flying around the big physical shields. Like that's actually a really great image. So let's talk about the ship itself. What's the ship's name? What's the ship that your character's from called?
The ship is Thyrsis. That's probably how I'm going to end up saying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me what it looks like.
So on the outside, it's a series. Oh, we didn't do the ability that they lost.
Oh, you're right. We didn't. We'll come back to it. Tell me what it looks like first.
Sorry. So it's a series of bulb-like nodes connecting bridges and the occasional sort of flat oblong panel-like section. And they're all kind of clustered, but coming more or less to a point.
Okay.
And sort of a visual note I have here, because I know I have a lot of time, I have a hard time parsing audio descriptions of stuff. So I put a lot of like footnotes in here. So I have a note here of like, it might be helpful to think of the head of a stalk of Queen Anne's lace.
I don't know what that is. Is that that's a, okay, I'm looking at it.
But it's like clusters of flowers and then it joins. So it's like, yeah, it's very broad, but still comes to a sort of point.
Gotcha. That's interesting looking. Okay. Also, like, those cluster and then cluster again and then cluster again. Does Thyrsus do this?
Yes, it's kind of a mess.
Okay. Love it.
Like,
I love it. What a messy ship. I'm a messy ship who lives for drama. Okay. What about on the inside?
Oh man, this is a long one. I struggled with this a little bit.
You don't have
I think
to
I'm at
read
a point.
it, but,
I know. I think I'm at a point where I like it. So it's because of the construction of the ship, and there's not a lot of like really big open spacious areas. There's generally people don't like the feeling of being interior. So like interior rooms, interior spaces aren't super popular. They're still around. They're still there. When they are there, they usually have very tall vaulted ceilings, but the preference is they have tall vaulted ceilings and like a lot of reflective, natural looking surfaces like stone and wood and glass more than metal. But the majority of places would feel like being in sort of an interconnected, nested series of alleys, courtyards, plazas, with the rooms being rare.
Gotcha.
Spaces between spaces. So shopkeepers would have an outward-facing window, but they wouldn't necessarily have shop floor space that you would walk around in.
Right.
The people with access to more resources might choose to avoid having any interior spaces at all. So they would still have like a private area, but it would be private in the sense of like it has this sort of fake open air thing with a fence representing the actual physical boundaries.
But then they still just get the big open access to public space in a sense. It's just public-private. It's just private public space, if that makes sense. Okay. Like, this is my corner of this big open space.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
So, like, it's kind of like the much more advanced equivalent of, like, when you have a kid's room and you paint clouds and stuff on the walls.
Yes. Gotcha. So what is the ability that the ship doesn't have anymore now that the Divine is dead?
So Bellegarde provided extremely high material efficiency in construction and repairs. So the effective reworking of what exists instead of pure addition or replacement. So the contrast here with Keith's Divine is that this isn't like grafting an arm that doesn't fit onto something. This is like making the replacement arm out of that thing, but it's still like, it doesn't look grafted on.
Right. It's like your recycle, Keith's reuse.
Yeah, as long as material hasn't been lost, like if stuff gets shot out into space or whatever, that would be an issue. But if things are mostly contained, it's able to take those components and rework them into something that is more or less the original, or was.
Right, and so now the fleet can't do that anymore, which means I love this because it means that for 30,000 years or some amount of time since ever Bellegarde was first designed, waste wasn't a thing, really. Like, there wasn't a concept of waste, and now there is, and like, okay, fuck, like, this is just trash now? Like, I don't know what to do with this? What do you mean we can't just turn it into a different thing? I love that. I love that notion of like, oh yeah, that's a very clear loss. Cool. What is, sorry, everything just jumped on my screen. What is one of the foundational rules of this, of Thyrsus, that, sorry, did we miss, oh, you know what, I missed one on Keith's too, now that I look at this again. There was not an answer there. We can jump back to it, Keith, in a second, so.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
That's fine. So, Janine, what is one rule that is shared among all of the fleets, but that this ship kind of either was on the foregrounds of or really holds tightly?
This, I don't love my answer here. It might not work. It might need some reworking. The thing I wrote was, there is nothing so sacred as cold metal warmed in the palm.
Nice.
And
I get
trying
it.
to.
I think I like the thing that I like about it is like there's this notion of, I mean, like it's a very synthesis heavy answer that's like about humans doing work like with machines, and also just like keeping active. It's almost like what's the full thing of like an idle hand, blah blah, is the devil's something plaything is like, yeah, fucking work, like do stuff with metal, like do technology stuff. Don't sit around, don't expect it to do it for you either. There should be a connection. Also good because of how Belgard died, which is their excerpt abandoned them, which betrays this rule, which I like a lot. So what is the other thing, the one rule that people of this ship have that other ships don't have?
That like should mend like. So flesh must be mended with flesh, metal must be mended with metal.
That's a
which
big
would understandably
one.
Not necessarily be popular anywhere else.
Right. I mean, so you're still chipped, right? But that's not the same thing as. So is additive stuff okay? Like, can I get a metal? Can I get like a?
I think additive stuff is okay in the same way that like clothing is okay, and
right.
like but it's like if you take damage to flesh, then flesh needs to be used to repair that damage.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah, I got it. Like, so if my knee gets blown off, like I need to get a new
knee from,
I can't do prosthetic. Right? Is that basically the...
No.
Interesting. Okay.
You could like enhance, if you get like a kind of iffy knee, you could probably like enhance that a little bit, but...
Yeah, no, I like the notion of like, this is just a different... This ship will be very different in this way, right? Like, they won't be big fuck off metal arms on this ship, probably, in the same way that there were in other places. Unless they're like metal arms you put on over your regular arms.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could probably have like a metal plating thing with like pins that go in and do some reinforcing or whatever, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay. What is the fashion that's unique to your ship?
I picked highly embellished but rather shapeless overcoats. The length and material varies, but ankle-length cuts of heavily textured fabric are considered more desirable, as they're both more resource-intensive and hold their structure better, if you're using the actual material anyway.
Right.
Sleeves would sometimes be slashed up the arm. Off-ship, they're technically worn open or fastened at the collar to give a more tailored and cape-like effect and to be a little less, like, stand-out-ish.
No, I think it's still pretty stand-outish. I think
it's still very stand-outish, but it's like stand-outish in a way that blends in more than like a big like. My inspiration here was a lot of like Victorian driving clothes and also like mid-century women's coats that are just like this huge fucking like pile of fabric that's just on you.
Yeah, I love it. What's the tone of the ship given the crisis?
Stayed. They have doubled down on routines and structure. It's kind of, I have here like be the stability you want to see in the world approach, but there's sort of an avoidancy there of just like the thing they're doing is they want to just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah. Right. Of course, that'll help. Which is which is their favorite ship?
I think they would get along very well with Gumption's Gambit. I didn't see that Keith had put down.
Pierce's also. You had put down mine.
It just feels like a very compatible like worldview in terms of what they do.
So I didn't ask Keith this before because he didn't have an answer for it before. But what is their least favorite ship here?
Allie's.
Ooh. Well, let's jump there next. All right. So yeah, Allie, let's talk about your divine.
Hi. I'm actually thrilled by this because I wanted to have a bad relationship with someone who's going to be in my party.
Oh, shit. It's true.
Not like directly, but like, oh, okay, so you're from there. What's up?
That's true.
Anyway, I'm scrolling back up to
So tell me about your divine first and foremost.
My divine is the divine of anticipation.
Okay. What were they good at?
The thing that they were best at, which is kind of a really direct interpretation of this, but like simulation of different scenarios to find out the best direction for the fleet as a whole. So in terms of like being able to figure out which planets can be sustainable even before Dre's whole thing, or or just like, oh, we should be going west for a little while.
Totally.
That sort of stuff.
The thing that I like about it is that like that job changed dramatically in the last like 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
That for like 29,000 years, that was basically like, all right, like what's going to make everybody happiest for Thursday dinner. And then like that had to become like, okay, what happens if they flank us from the west? Not that there was no military action or something for that 30,000 years, but it was much smaller scale than what's happened lately. And so I kind of like that shift there of just like, in a weird way, anticipation has probably gotten more important than ever before. Now that it's like, uh-oh time.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh-oh time. That's what it's called, everybody. Fuck. So tell me about what the divine looked like and
Yeah, sure. So the physical form of the divine, I was thinking of. Do you know the the funnels of the new Gundam?
Yeah, me. Yes, of course I do.
Counterattack.
Yeah.
Which are essentially these like, for the audience, they're just kind of these like long rectangular sort of floating pieces. That can kind of sit together in like a fan shape or spread out and like form shields in between them or separate or whatever they need to. I don't think that they separate in the way that they would, because there's like cities in there, but they do. Right. Like they don't open up, but they do separate. And like I was thinking that there would be like they would be able to form like goalposts and then have shields in between,
like for soccer and football. Why? Is there a reason
like,
for the goal?
Protecting other parts of the fleet.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Like, yeah,
gotcha.
Like a much less elegant version of Janine's thing, which is I am willing to scrap it.
Mm-hmm.
But like if there's like just people coming from the west, you can just create a like fence essentially.
Right. I think those are different things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think those are different things. And again, I think it makes sense that we have that overlap. Like, these are the last 8 that lived. Maybe it's because they were the ones who repaired each other and had good shields. Like, and were super efficient recyclers. Yeah. Like, I almost said, sorry, Culture Divine, but you weren't really helping out. And then I remembered what some of our other divines were. So...
Yeah, so that's that. But there's also, what I'm also thinking when I'm picturing this is sort of like a pocket knife, where like in most cases, they're all just layered on top of each other. There's like 5 separate pieces that can either be a fan or separate, but mostly are just sort of this big weird rectangle.
So Anticipation was the ship then, basically?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Did you say this elevator bit you have written down?
I did not say that out loud.
Okay, it's good. You should say that bit.
So the body of the divine itself is considered the elevator between the different levels. And the kind of religious sect of the culture on the ship considered going to every layer in a single day an act of penance.
I really like this a lot. It's really good.
I think that if you worship the god of anticipation, the act of like moving in between places is something that is holy.
Right. Is that about because it's basically wasting time? Like it's not wasting, but you know what I mean? Like you're basically like, all right, I have a full day of stuff to do. And what my divine does really well is figures out how to do all of it, right? In a way that's like, okay, first I go to the store and pick up this, and this, and then I have to go drop off the kids at practice, and then, whatever. And instead of trying to live my life in that way, I am like dedicating an entire day to just being in the presence of this thing. Or is that just my bad interpretation?
No, I think that's part of it. I think also part of that is that in like experiencing anticipation, you're looking forward to something.
Ooh, sure.
So the idea of like, oh, I have to get fish for dinner tonight, but I'm going to go to this like really good shop 3 layers up from here to go get that. Because the entire time I'm going to be thinking about how good this dinner is going to be. There's something like, special.
Yeah,
about that.
I like that a lot. That's really cool. So like, then are there like, is each trip basically a little prayer?
Yeah, I would say
about
so.
like what the thing is you hope. That's really good. I like that a lot. how did anticipation die?
The way that I've written is sort of just by decaying. I think that over time, its ability to like figure out stuff just slowed down to the point where it just stopped. It stalled. So it's dead.
So it
now.
just the thing that I like is like it's essentially stuck in a rendering buffering status. Like it's like it doesn't have enough RAM. And it just
right, yeah,
like did like a blue screen of death, like hard crash, hard freeze. I love that so much. Andy in the chat says, "Oh, it's my laptop." Yeah, totally. I love that. That's really good. That's really good for other party reasons that we'll get to once we get to character stuff.
Okay.
Which is good. I also the other thing I like about this is like they died for weird reasons, and one of the things I want to make clear up top is like. They went 30,000 years without dying. Suddenly, they started dying. That's weird. In the parlance of today, this is not normal. And so it should be... one of the core mysteries for me in this game is going to be figuring out why the Divine started dying. Why did this happen now suddenly when it hadn't happened for all that other time? So...
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make mine specifically kind of a mystery, where it was like doing this thing fine for a while and then just started dying off. To the point that it just, like, it can't be restored.
Totally. So what specific ability did it add to the fleet that it doesn't anymore? Is that just kind of the specialty that you kind of outlined before? Of like...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that it can separate anymore.
Okay, so the ship can't do the thing where, like, it separates. Oh,
right,
I mean, maybe that's an interesting thing. Like, maybe the funnels did used to be able to separate all the way.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And go to different ships and basically be like part of a network that helped them all coordinate very cleanly, and now they can't.
Right, yeah. So the way that I tried to describe the funnels before is that they could move apart in a way that like the way that birds do. In that there's one at a point and then they kind of fan out, and they can use that to be able to like signal to the ships around them like this is the way that we're going.
Right.
And those sort of things. And now it's just this sort of like it can probably still like spin out a little bit, but it can't they can't become separate pieces.
Totally. Cool. What does it still do for everybody?
I'm not super sure.
I one thing that I'll suggest here, and like I don't know if this clicks, is just like it sounds like you have a really big divine that has lots of like if you're talking about like riding the elevator up to go to the floor where you go get the nice fish, like it could just be about having space for people to live or shop in or something. I'm not committing to that now, but like think about it, you know, turn it over in your head for a week.
I'm super willing to like, because I imagine it as like a big structure where like things are really far apart, but like this is the second interesting thing about Janine really not liking me is that I imagine so I'm just going to skip down and say that I imagine the inside of the ship to be sort of like those big hotels where you can see the lobby from every floor because there's like a balcony outside of your hotel room.
Yeah, love it.
Like instead of it being like a hotel room there, it's an entire like sort of city section. But the spaces that are actually like homes and shops and things like that are actually really small.
Right.
Because there's like a appreciation for like intimacy in that way.
Okay.
So there's that.
But there are these big open spaces.
Right,
like,
yeah. So but like to
them.
get to a place, it's gonna take you like 20 minutes. And there's like there was a picture that you shared last night of the image of like a futuristic city, but like they were
this is so good. Yes.
Yeah.
It is a God. How do I'm gonna do a reverse Google search for this so that people at home can find it. It is called. If you do a search for Sparth, that's just the guy's name. That's not gonna help, Austin. Fuck. It doesn't have a name. Artists, start naming your shit. I can't just go to ArtStation and be like, oh, click on the one with, it looks like, what if Venice was a floating city and also had more domes? Like, that's not gonna help.
People get it, though.
Yeah, but I want them to see it because this art is cool.
Yeah, we'll link it.
Okay. As long as we link it. Someone tweet at us and say, hey, link it.
But, like, sort of, with the actual city spaces being separated by this huge middle section.
Right. That's just empty. That's just
right. Or
open
like
air.
has like, mostly open airs. I was thinking of like floating gardens in between because I'm that person.
Yeah, this is the season. Oh, okay. Let me go back to the top. That was me rewinding. Keith, I don't know if you know, I can do any sound that exists.
Can you do any sound?
I can do any sound.
Fast-forwarding.
So actually, here's the thing. Like, I have a really good... we've established this in canon. I do a really good Keith impression, which you saw with Mako and Larry. And it's because it's a transitive thing. I can now do any sound because Keith can do any sound. So I actually can't do any sound.
So I can do any sound.
Doing any sound.
Right, exactly. So can you do me doing, I guess, water droplets falling into a tin cup?
Bloop, 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 bloop.
That's good.
Bloop.
That's exactly like how I do it, and that is also exactly how it sounds.
That's exactly it. Perfectly. All right, we're going to keep moving because otherwise we'll just go off into this bit, which is a good bit. Just to be clear.
It's an old bit.
That's one of my faves. Keep moving, though, because time is of the essence. What else is going on with your ship and your culture? What is the... Did you figure out any of the rule stuff?
Rewinding to talk about gardens?
Oh, this is the season. This is the season where we can be fucking extra, where we can do whatever the fuck we want, where we're allowed to have big floating gardens.
Okay, yeah, I know. Uh-huh.
That's all. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Do a search for Pendul City. Pendul space city. That will get you to the picture that we've been talking about. Great, yes. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
All right. But yeah, so going back to the city, does it have any rules that are specific to it, or that came from it? Have you gotten there yet?
It does, but those are big for me and what my character are going to be, so I have not figured them out yet.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
What about fashion? Talk to me about fashion.
So what I have written for fashion here is that there's a focus on having different items or elements of your outfit from different layers of the city. Okay. So lots of like clashing patterns or like layers, stuff like that. I kind of imagine it kind of just being a weird marketing scheme where
definitely
like, shops from one layer specifying like yellow things one week, and then
is there a card that I can take from one layer to the next to get stamped?
Of course.
Do I get a free Subway sandwich if I get all 8 layers stamped?
You get a free like jewelry box.
What if it is a thing where it's like, what if it's like if you go to 7, you can get something from the 8th one like on discount, but then like the jewelry layer fucking hates it because everyone just comes through.
Like if going to every single layer in a day is such a bigger deal, I think that like you're like super fashionable if you have 5.
Right. Okay.
And like you look really good if you have 3, but like 5 is like avant-garde.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, this is the season of avant-garde, like haute couture. Like so many of the images that we shared in our group chat was like super high fashion nonsense imagery. Like no one would ever wear that. In this culture, they're totally wearing that. Partially because they don't need to actually wear it. Partially because it's like, oh yeah, I installed this. Like for a lot of folks because real things are expensive. Also, money might be different in this world. I've been thinking a lot about having, like, basically RAM instead of money, where it's like, oh yeah, you have a limit of how much you can, how much wealth you can have, but everything else, but you can kind of trade 1-to-1. So if you, like, buy something for 1 cred, you can sell it for 1 cred, but you only have a pool of X number of cred, basically, at once. And so, like, you could be the person who's like, all right, I'm going to spend the time to trade in all of my shit so that I can look fucking fly for prom. Let's do it. Whereas other people are just like, no, I have enough extra cred. Anyway, yes. Janine says Nier Automata chips, but for pants, exactly that. Nier Automata is also a big influence for this season, I have to say. Though we did start planning before it. Anyway. What's the tone?
Again, longest pre-pro in podcast history.
Everyone's ripping us off.
That's what we're saying. What is the tone or attitude of the ship during this period of instability?
I think that there was a lot of big talk about how like full unity between the fleet and like making informed decisions will help stability.
Okay.
But while also being like, we're the best at making decisions. So
right. No, I heard that without you having to say that second part. Yeah, we just really need to be unified, and people should just really listen to the great informed decisions that we have for everybody. We just really have the best wishes of everybody else at heart. You don't have a favorite or least favorite ship yet.
I kind of have them in my head. I didn't write them down. I think
okay.
that my favorites are probably Andy or Dre's.
Okay, we'll pick one and we'll go there next. And tell me what your least favorite is first before we.
Okay, I don't have a least favorite actually. I was thinking Arts, but I don't know.
Okay, let's jump to.
Oh, before we do that, I don't have a ship name, but I wanted to run the By and by you.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I kind of like that.
I don't hate it.
Yeah, one of the things I really like is that a lot of these ship names are different. Because 30,000 years is a long time, and names come in and out of favor a lot. So yeah. Let's go to Dre because it's right underneath. Wait, Andy's is right underneath you, right? Yeah. There we go. We'll just go down this line. Hi, Andy.
Hi, I'm unmuting from my sickness zone. Hello,
How?
I'm here.
Buddy, tell me about your divine and your ship. What is your ship called? If you have a ship
my ship is actually 2 ships.
Oh, interesting.
Connected.
Okay.
So my divine is the Divine Harmony, and my ships are the 2 tides of harmony, called Perigian and Seiche, which are both
Those wave things.
Ocean-related terms.
So would you refer to the ships together as the tides of harmony?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that is the kind of the unifying name there.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about what Harmony did or does, or sorry, did. It's dead.
So,
Harmony's dead, but...
Harmony's whole thing was basically, connecting, communication between, and networking.
Okay.
I have this written down, its combat strength was tactical formation, which I think is kind of similar to some other stuff that's been said, but, the main reason is that Harmony's the way that people on the tides connect to the veil or the mesh, whichever I think we're using both interchangeably, is through these nanites that were granted from Harmony that are in the bodies of everyone on the tides.
Right, which is different than most other ships that have cyber brain implants or whatever, cyber chip. They're chipped. So this is just nanos in your bloodstream or whatever, right?
Yeah, and the way I was seeing what their strength was that they could either they were able to quickly communicate to their citizens much faster than any other divine.
Gotcha.
Because they were literally part of them. They were in their bloodstream. And I think with some, I think with their was excerpts the term we were using for the candidates
excerpts.
now?
Yeah, definitely.
They could almost take control, direct control if they needed to. That's how strong that connection was specifically.
The citizens could, or
Harmony
could take control of the citizens
of these specific ones of the excerpts because they have a higher
gotcha.
They have a higher concentration of it.
Oh, I love that. I love that it's reversed of what we normally think of, because normally we think of the pilot goes into the ship or goes into the mech and goes and fights, but this could be the situation of okay, well, you got to go inside this base now, but I'm still going to be piloting you. Is really fucking cool.
Yeah. On top of that, I thought that it would be a very good mediator because specifically, I think it also acted as this with the other divines as a neutral party, but it also was for its citizens because it could literally just know what they were thinking almost.
Right.
And monitor them and be you're bullshitting this guy.
Right.
Stop
Give
bullshitting
him his
this
fucking
guy.
cows.
Exactly. It basically was almost this sort of parental figure to a lot of these ships in a weird way.
I also just like it because there's 2 of them, or there's one divine, but there's 2 ships, there are 2 excerpts, that means that they're always dealing with dualities, which means they have gotten used to dealing with conflict and finding a common ground. I like that a lot. How did they die despite all that?
So the way I have it written is just that the common belief is that they spread themselves too thin. People aren't actually 100% sure what happened. Harmony played this kind of close to the chest where people thought that they were giving more nanites to more people to try and have more than just 2 excerpts so they could be more efficient.
Gotcha.
And eventually it just got weaker and weaker as it gave more of itself away, and on top of that the population was increasing too.
Right.
So it just deteriorated and I have Harmony described. We skipped it, but I have it described as this like flower-like almost thing, and it used to have this really bright light, and eventually it just faded away.
And that's how they knew at that point.
And
Gotcha.
it's still like physically in between these two ships. It's just like dead because that's how they're connected.
Harmony is this like metallic corpse,
Basically,
or crystalline corpse. You have it written as crystalline.
Yeah.
Flower corpse in the center of these two ships.
Yeah, because the way the ships are connected is there's like some almost, they're not like, this is kind of a nebulous idea in my head where they're almost kind of like elevators, but like not really. They're just like a track that things can go along because they need to be able to move more than a rigid elevator would. And on top, and like there's also those connectors to Harmony itself because people would need to like go to it sometimes.
Right.
And so they just never got rid of the things connecting it because why would we sever that connection with it?
Right.
It might come back someday.
Right.
So it's just this like, I describe it as a dahlia, which if you look up dahlias, they're very like jagged.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this like very, like this empty, it looks like empty glass, I think. Just this jagged flower thing in the middle of these two ships.
And they're still connected, but they aren't like as close to it as they used to be or something?
Yeah, do you mean like the physically or with the nanite stuff?
Physically, yeah.
Yeah, so what the ships used to do is the reason they're called tides is they moved like waves almost, is how I saw it, where like they would move like around each other or like one would roll forward and one would roll back and stuff like that. And now they're just like parallel, basically.
Gotcha.
And it's just like they move still, but they're much more rigid and static. They don't have the finesse that they had when Harmony was still alive.
That's interesting. And sad. Like, that's a really potent image of like, I just imagine someone on another ship looking over and seeing this one completely like just stuck in its single position and being like, I miss when the tides used to like roll in and out. That was really cool.
Yeah, too. It's like you used to be able to see like the other side of the ship too, because it would move in different ways, and now you just see the one side.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Why do we make such a sad show? Fuck.
Listen, we're going for happier, generally speaking, this season, but I have to get some in.
Start in the valley, you know what I mean? You gotta call them out. So we talked already about like the basic thing of like having communication through these nanites and stuff. Was there anything else that it added to the fleet that is now gone?
So I was kind of mulling this over, and I think it could tie into that, which is that since it's died, communication between ships has gotten a lot harder.
Oh, right. This is totally just the thing that we talked about already, which is this is why people need to go to fucking police booths to call different ships. Yeah, okay.
Like now there's like interference from like space rocks or whatever getting in the way of signals and shit. I don't know. I couldn't think of like the proper term for like interference.
Space rocks. Got it.
You know what I mean though, right?
I
like
do.
There's like, there's a bunch of like debris in the way and like...
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
What does the ship still do for the fleet?
The way I see Harmony's ships like internally is that there's a lot of production going on in there.
Okay.
Because they prided themselves on the efficiency of what Harmony let them do. I don't have this written down yet, but I was thinking that for a while people would switch which tide they were on depending on the time of year.
Oh,
and they do different jobs. So like everyone learned how to do different things so they could produce like food, basically. Right. Is like the main thing. Because we talked about how textile and stuff is kind of rare. Yeah. So I don't want that to be a thing.
Yeah.
But stuff like food, stuff like supplies, things like that.
Right, yeah, whatever people need. Like, I just like that notion, too, of just like, oh, yeah, they're skilled laborers. Like, they know how to make or they might do what we might think of as unskilled labor, but they do it because they know how to do it. So that when the divine ship who makes, like, you know, socks, when that one fucking goes away, guess what? The tides of Harmony got your back. They'll knit you some fucking socks.
Yeah, I kind of actually saw it as like everybody had like two jobs they would do basically, and one of them is a more intricate thing, and one of the more like unskilled, like you said. Where it's like the guy who makes socks might also be a really good glass blower.
Right. That's really cool. That's a cool culture. I'm really happy with all of the answers so far from everybody. This is good. Is there anything else to say about the inside of the ship and what it looks like?
On the inside, I'm not 100% sure yet. I think that they're mostly like the two of so we vaguely mentioned this, and then we'll get to it when we get to like what the tone is of the ship right now. But
you can just do that now too if you want.
okay. Some of the nanites have started to fail, and in some people, they're just not being born with them. They've been set up in a way where they should be hereditary, like they are like biomechanical in a way, where like you can pass them on to your kids. But some people either they stop working or they're being born with like at a very small percentage are being born without them. So there's almost these districts of people kind of like put in the corners of the two tides where it's like, you don't have this and we don't know how to deal with that. And you can't do a lot of the things we need you to do. So you're just over here now.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Is there anything else here that you have? You're still working on the rules for the culture stuff? And the
yeah,
stuff?
I think I did want to say with the fashion style thing, I kind of thought of something maybe. There's like a lot of pride in having like at least one thing on your person that you've made yourself.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, totally.
So whether it's like a piece of jewelry or like a really nice top you made or like a jacket or something, like just to show that this is the thing that you can do well.
Totally. I like that a lot. So let's do Dre ship next and Divine.
That sounds good.
Tell me about your divine.
So my divine's name is Potency. And their kind of specialty was that they could terraform planets and moons to basically, like I think at the height of their capability, they were even able to like almost like alchemy, like transmute like certain resources into other resources that they needed.
Okay.
So it's like, this one planet has this type of ore, and we don't really need that, but we can like kind of change it into the ore that we do need at this time.
That's a really useful power.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But then they could also do stuff like, this is just a moon, but like, give me a month and now it has like a breathable atmosphere and we can grow plants on it and stuff like that.
Very quick. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What was potency? What did it look like? Physically?
So I think it was like the ship itself has like a couple of like spears that kind of rotate within it. And I think potency lived in one of those spears.
Okay.
The rest of those spheres are all translucent. I think maybe potency's was opaque. So I don't know if I know exactly what they look like besides just that like spear housing.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I think it was able, like, if they needed to hurry things up, that sphere could like shoot off from the ship and basically like enter a ship like a planet's atmosphere, and like speed everything up.
Gotcha. So like they could like show up and be like, all right, not a month, a week.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. How did potency die?
So I think potency was in like a big hurry, and they were trying to transmute like one thing to another, and it like really messed up a planet's mass. And like threw it off orbit and into like the star of that system, and the star was basically going to collapse and like blow up and take out everybody, and so potency stayed behind to basically keep the star stable long enough to allow everybody else to get out.
Interesting. Okay. So clear sacrifice being made here.
Yeah, but also like they messed up, like they like kind of got caught up in how their capabilities and made like a huge mistake.
Yeah, this is really interesting to me because again, it's like, all right, 30,000 years, this didn't happen. Or at least if it happened, no one had to stay behind to like save the day. Or maybe it was a situation where it was like, oh no, we have enough divines, another one could come and help get it right.
Yeah.
And fix it. And now that there's only one that does this, then there's no fixing it. It's either fix it and I die or, whatever. So like, I like, again, the mystery element here of like, why did this happen only now? Why didn't this mistake happen 15,000 years ago? So we talked about terraforming already as what it could do,
and
it can't do that anymore. What can it still do for the fleet?
So it's still able to make small changes to a planet. Like it can like, if there's already like some semblance of an atmosphere in place, it can like make that atmosphere like more breathable. Or it can like, if there's already like soil, it can make that soil like, have chemistry that's better for like planting certain plants in and stuff. But it can't like straight up be like, this is a moon with no atmosphere and suddenly it's like a place where you can walk around without a spacesuit on.
Totally.
Or it can't do like that transmutation of resources. And in order to make even these small changes, they have to basically send people planet side to like place like nodes or connection points on the planet's surface to like form a more stable connection from the ship and like their scientists down to the planet's surface.
Spoilers for Planet Game, but this will be part of what your objective is doing this stuff, which I just love because I just immediately love the image of y'all like fucking carrying all sorts of weird cables and big metallic things, and like maybe there's a robot mule or something, and you're coming over the horizon and seeing a little frontier town. Like, it's good. I'm excited. What is the name of the ship that Potency is tied to?
The Ever Forward.
The Ever Forward. What a fucking Potency name. Tell me about the Ever Forward. What's it look like on the outside and on the inside?
So on the outside, there's kind of two main structures, like kind of two different parts of the ship. So there are like kind of two like metal cylinders on the outside, and those are kind of like where like the ship stuff is, like, you know, the engines and weapons, shields and stuff like that. Between them, there's a series of translucent spheres that kind of independently rotate, but then also spin around an axis like a Ferris wheel between those two cylinders. And that's like where most of the individuals live. Also in these spheres, this is kind of jumping ahead to another part, so I don't know if you want me to talk about this now.
Yeah, please.
So one of the things that the Ever Forward kind of decided on when they were still able to do this like really intense terraforming, is that people pointed out, like, you know, if we really change a planet's environment, like, we're gonna wipe out certain kinds of life.
Right. Like, you're just going to fuck up that ecology completely.
Right.
By, like, even if you're just like, oh yeah, we're going to turn the iron into copper for some reason. Like, yeah, that's not, the mountain wasn't built to have copper in it. It has iron in it. Like,
right. So what's going to happen when, like, this planet's weird rain comes along and the thing that was here was resistant to it, but now this iron isn't. So they decided, like, okay, if we are making a change that we think is going to really impact an ecology or ecosystem, we're going to, like, basically Noah Ark this shit and, like, take, like, animals or plants that we think are going to be extinct with us. So all of these translucent spheres have, like, a multitude of different biomes and stuff like that to support this, like, kind of giant ship-wide zoo of different plants and animals.
Interesting. Cool. Is that, like, that's part of your rule, right? That's one of the cultural rules for you?
Yeah.
Is that the one that is just yours? Like, just your ship does this, the zoo thing? Not everybody. Other ships have, like, done colonies and stuff where they're like, who cares about that roach?
Right. Yeah, I think so. And, you know, maybe they're like, our freaking Ever Forward would probably want this stupid roach. And so they might, like, call somebody. But maybe not.
Sure.
Who knows?
But maybe not. Who knows? Right. Totally. But it's not their rule. It is your rule.
Yeah.
What's it look like on the inside? Just
so,
the zoo is the big thing.
Yeah. And I think, like, there are like, you know, buildings and things like that, but it's a lot more, it's kind of closer to suburban than urban.
Sure.
I think it's a lot more kind of like sprawling and there's more space. Like everybody has some form of garden, and there's also like shared like kind of urban garden spaces like everywhere.
Right. God, I kind of love that notion of like, yeah, I have a garden and I'm growing a plant in it that happens to grow in this biome dome that I'm in, but is from a planet from 13,000 years ago that we colonized once. That colony is long gone at this point, maybe. But, like, we still have this rutabaga, this special alien rutabaga. And, like, yep, like, I'm Mary, and I grow the alien rutabaga.
Also, everybody on the Ever Forward is a vegetarian.
Oh, that's good. Janine in the chat says rutabaga, and I hate you. I hate you. Yeah, vegetarian. That's also, it seems in line. I can fuck with that. That's interesting. What's the other rule that you guys have that is like, yeah, we have this and most people have it, but we really have it?
Take what is necessary and leave what you can.
Okay, that's cool. It's kind of a general good rule to live by. The thing I like about these is that, like, by the time we're done, we're going to have 8 of them that are not an 8 commandments situation necessarily, but like a pretty good idea of what the overlapping cultural rule set is, for the ships that are left anyway. So that's good. Okay, what's the fashion or style that is unique to your culture?
People here are really functional.
Okay.
They wear like clothes and jackets that have lots of pouches and pockets.
Okay.
And so some of those pockets are filled with like empty vials or beakers or something. So like they could take like soil samples and other sorts of, weird plant stuff. But then probably also already like, I think a big thing here is everybody has like a packet of seeds on them at all time. Like, so if they see a place where it's like, oh, this seems like a good place to grow my weird rutabaga, they just go for it.
Great. Cool. I can fuck with that. You have a very important note here also that you've not yet said.
World War I era peacoats for everybody.
Big peacoat culture. Good. Great. What is the tone of the ship right now?
So I think like the Ever Forward started out being like a very, like, they were really committed to like this kind of like holding on to like one of everything. And they weren't very practical about it. Like, that's how you get like giant shared gardens and people being like, I'm just gonna fucking plant this seed here. Right. But like, as things have kind of gotten worse, I think they've become a lot more practical. Okay. And a big thing that's come from that was they used to probably not have much of it at all, any sort of like military. And I think that's grown over a while because they want to protect, they've got samples of this stuff that may not exist anywhere else in the universe. Right. And making sure that they're able to stand on their own 2 feet and protect those things is of growing importance to them. And it's not like they're not like hostile or against working with other ships in the fleet, but it's more of like if we get pushed up against the corner and we can't rely on anybody else, we want to make sure that we can take care of ourselves.
Totally. I like that's interesting too, because there's almost like that sort of is its own notion of sustainability, which is cool. I see your favorites right now are probably Bellegarde or Gumption.
Yeah, I could really see Janine's ship, especially since they're about like efficiency.
Right.
Because then they're being able to change as little as possible and getting the greatest result.
Right. And then least favorite, maybe Art's, you right. And so we should go to Art now, who can defend his good ship.
Yeah.
Hi, Art. What's your divine and your ship name?
My divine's name is Remember.
Okay.
I mean, I have some ideas, one of which has involved running the word remember through Google Translate 100 times.
Sure.
To find out that in Vietnamese, it's no lie.
Ooh.
And that's great.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's good enough to keep. So
okay.
Let's call that draft 1.
Also, we don't really know. Like, you ran that through Google Translate a bunch. You don't necessarily know what the Vietnamese word for remember is.
Oh yeah, I could have gotten fucked up like 4 or 5 translations ago, and I could just be fucking throwing darts in the dark here.
Yeah, which maybe we should be careful with every now and then.
How about darts in the dark? Huh? No.
Okay.
I'll get there. By the time we record, I'll have a name.
Tell me about Remember / No Lie.
Okay, they were built as a way of preserving the entirety of human knowledge and experience. But I don't know if anyone's read that Borges story.
You're on a call with me and Jack DeKeat, who have studied at the school of Borges. But for our listeners at home who might not have had the opportunity to, please tell us about the story.
There's a story about a young man who gets in an accident when he gets his perfect memory, and what he gets. And he gets really obsessed with, not obsessed with, but the stories about him talking about what that's like, and he can't sleep because he can't stop thinking about all the imperfections in his neighbor's wall, or he doesn't recognize that things are the same from moment to moment because they're always changing in these ways they're imperceptible to anyone who doesn't perceive the world as he does. He's also trying to get a system of numbers where they're all different, where every sequential number has a completely different name.
Right. Where it's not just 11, 12, like it's not just like 21 and then 31. They're each a different thing, right?
Right, yeah, like every number would have its own unique, let's just say it, useless name.
I have a question, Art.
Yeah.
The name of that story has the word it was like Funes or Funes or Funes the Memorious. Why is the name of your divine not just Memorious?
Yeah, that's good. Let's do that.
I'm just saying it's there. It's right there. Anyway.
So much like this story, the divine became obsessed with ephemera. Not
Okay.
with not like it still is preserving all knowledge, don't get me wrong, but like it's really into what's happening now. Because it's so different than everything that happened before, even if it doesn't appear that way.
Gotcha. Interesting. What is the physical form of the divine itself? Or is it, it doesn't sound like a mech to me.
Yeah, I looked through everyone else's and saw that everyone else was saying that there was a physical form beyond the ship. So if everyone else is answering yes, I wanted to answer no.
Good. Always a good way to play games.
Yeah, so the divine is the library and the library is the ship.
Okay. Cool. How did Memorious die?
I'm worried my idea is a little close to Allie's.
Hi.
But what if I thought they got full. You know, they built this
Oh.
divine at some point and it had memory, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like we filled it with all of the biggest. It's basically made of hard drives, right?
Yep.
Or whatever. And well, this will never fill. And then 10,000 years later, 30,000 years later, it did.
Yeah. Let's definitely do that for reasons that will become clear later.
Okay.
There's a really good character hook here that we'll get to, which is exciting. So what ability did Memorious have that the fleet has now lost because Memorious is dead?
The knowledge isn't gone, right? Like it's still that's still accessible.
Right.
But Memorious knew how to call it up. Memorious knew
Sure.
everything instantly.
Memorious always rolled a 10 plus on checks to recall information.
Yeah, could spout lore like crazy.
Right.
And now it's like, well, we have all this knowledge, but like it's not sorted in a way that makes any sense to us. It's sorted by someone who thought every number needed its own unique
Exactly.
name. And like we got up to 10 and then we're like, fuck.
What's the number for
What's 11?
You have to go to a book that's just called all of the names that 11 has and look up.
Geez, one of these is just called 8. I don't know.
So it went
numbers.
from instant recall to just dramatic slowness.
Right. And that to me seems like it sets up the thing that it still does provide, which is it still has all that information.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, the other thing it is because it was so obsessed with ephemera, it's a very like artistic, like an artist colony is sort of broken out on the ship.
Gotcha. That's
And-
cool.
And Memorious was so obsessed with that it fed into it. The attention of the divine could make an artist, and now
Right.
that's like not there. So some artists that would have been very popular are not, and culture's getting a little stale.
That's a shame. I should say I've talked about it kind of in the intro of like, culture was a big deal along with technology during this kind of golden age, and partly I think that's just because I want a version of utopia in which art is important, But I think that even in the narrative of this world, I mentioned that Kamala Cadence, the prophet, kind of convinced people with this metaphor of the resonant orbit, which is it's an event that happens in the real world in real astronomy, where different planets orbiting a single center or different celestial bodies orbiting a center mass do so in sync with each other, not perfectly synchronized, but synchronized such that like they're almost in rhythm with each other. So like, for every 3 orbits of the innermost one, the next one will do 4 orbits, and the next one will do 5 orbits, and they're like on time and clocked. And in my mind, she like painted that in an open air arena, and showed the difference between what was going to happen, which was like all of these planets are on these collision courses that eventually they're going to run into each other. Their orbits are not stable. The relationship between divines and people is going to turn into a terrible war again. We need to get on point with that. And the reason she could do that is like, oh yeah, I'm a really good holographic animator. Like that's just a skill I have. She's like a painter who paints things in holograms. So I really like the notion that art is still represented here on your ship because it was kind of core to one of the kind of creation myths of the culture. And I'm glad that we didn't all just do, oh, it's military stuff. Oh, it's, I'm glad that we got some good variety here. I'm digging it. So what's the ship look like on the inside and outside?
Okay, on the outside, the ship is thousands and thousands of interlocking cubes.
Okay.
And every 6 hours, there's a design contest.
Okay.
Voted on by the entire population of the ship.
Okay.
And that is the design for 6 hours.
6 hours?
Are there any times when 2 people enter? Or is it always hotly contested?
I think it's always pretty hot. I mean, there might be only a few dozen people, but I think that's the rock bottom.
So, I go to work, and then I leave work, and the ship looks different?
I mean, it looks different on the outside. I think it's not as different on the inside. Like it's one of these technology things I don't know how to quite reconcile, but sure. I feel like you're always next to the, if you went to work and your house was next to the supermarket, when you come home, that supermarket's still there, even if the ship went from being a perfect sphere to a double helix.
Right.
Helix.
Helix.
This is how.
Go ahead. No,
I just think
Allie.
that it's really funny that at 7 p.m. that ship probably looks amazing, but at 4 a.m. the kind of weaker design gets through.
Tired Steven has submitted his design.
We get it, Steven. It's a dick. We get it. Ha ha. Yes.
Well, but the thing there is that Steven goes oh shit, it's a dick. Oh god, I'm so tired. I didn't.
Oh, I didn't mean this at all. I hit paste. I meant to hit crop. It was the count. It was it has to be in. It has to be in. It's every 6 hours. I have to file this by 5:59.
People keep saying
no.
Keep saying, Steven, do it in the afternoon. I guess if it wins, it wins. Hey, what do you win at?
I think it's the recognition is enough,
fucking one of these competitions.
The recognition of being one of 4 people every day for thousands of years.
For exposure.
It works for leaderboards.
Yeah.
I guess it does, yeah.
God.
It's sort of like a phone game, but it determines what your whole city looks like.
Great. This is probably a good moment for me to say that one of the rules that I had in Counterweight that was fucking hard and fast was nothing that could look like space magic. Even the way that divines could do wormhole stuff was all right, there are 2 divines and something can pass between them, the fucking end. That is it. There's no magic. And that came up a lot because people were what if Chiron is just in Counterweight's universe? It isn't. And that was important to me because the kind of core theme of Counterweight was the world is terrible. We can change it if we roll up our fucking sleeves. There is no magic bullet. There is no single, we're not going to snap our fingers and fix things. That's not the way the world is built, given what our problems are. Here, I'm taking a lot of inspiration from a speech that the sci-fi and fantasy writer Ursula K. Le Guin gave during her National Book Award speech, I think in 2013, maybe 2014, in which she kind of, so I took a lot of that inspiration into Counterweight too, because that's where she says, we live in capitalism, its reign seems inevitable, so did the divine right of kings. So that's very, very, very Counterweight. But there's also a bit where she talks about the need for imagining a different future, and needing kind of radical creative thinkers to kind of say, what could the world look like? And for this season, I really want to lean into that more, which means that I am interested in saying, what if we could make a thing? What if we could do anything? What would the world look like if we could do anything? And for art, it means making thousands and thousands of cubes that you could vote on their various configurations, which is good. So what's the inside look like, given all of that, Art?
I think the inside's a little chaotic, I think, because there's been, 30,000 years of just fantastic artwork. So on one hand, there's the Sistine Chapel or whatever, the sci-fi Sistine Chapel.
Uh-huh.
On the other hand, the trends move fast enough that like there's like cube pizza because cubes were cool once, and this guy opened a pizza place. So like across the street from the Sistine Chapel is Jack's Cube Pizza.
Gotta love that cube pizza.
Hey. Hey, as long as there's crust on every slice, I'm for it.
I don't think the pizza's actually a cube. I think it's just a cube theme.
What?
Like there's a lot of cubes inside.
It is a traditional circle pizza, but it's clearly themed like cubed pizza.
Is it like pepperoni cubes? I don't. I understand.
I think it's just there's a lot of cubes inside, like the lighting fixture's a cube, and
it's like the 80s
tables
inside.
Are all cubes. Yeah,
I got it. Cool. What is one of the foundational rules of your culture, Art, that is shared with other ships, but that you hold more closely to than they do?
I put out, you aren't someone until you make something people care about.
Mm.
And I think a way that it's said on this ship is like, you're going to be remembered, but you can be remembered with one of those numbers that no one knows or understands or cares about, or you can be,
Jack's
can be two.
Cube Pizza. Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
What is the rule that is only yours?
Do not tell me what you've done. Tell me what you were doing.
That's good. I like that a lot. Yeah, I love it. That's a really good rule. What is the fashion or style unique to this culture?
Okay, I think there's like a crazy amount of movement on this too. Like, if the ship changes every 6 hours, fashion changes very quickly too.
Right.
But what that's really done is made the thing these people have is really solid, like, essentials.
Mm.
They have really good, you can't invest in your clothes because they change so much. So invest in your undershirt. Have,
Right.
a great satchel. The things that you can always have, make those good. So the basics, they have good shirts, they have good shoes, they have good, great socks. Probably the best socks you've ever seen.
Love it. Except for the socks that are knitted on the other, or maybe that's where they get them from. The good knitted socks from Andy's ship. Who knows?
Yeah.
What is your tone? What is the tone on the ship?
People are scared and they're hiding it with, lavish parties for art exhibits or like outrageous bacchanals. It's like a very late 90s reading of the idea of raging against the dying of the light.
Yeah, I'm into it. I think I read this book in high school and I was like, yeah, totally, man.
Or like, if I can just like secretly tell you what I meant, it's like finals week, your last year at art school.
Right, sure. I actually
because I was
do
at
know
your school. I was at your school during finals week once.
You were. It was wild. People had shit to do. That was the craziest thing about that too. Was like so for people who don't know, I went to Cal Arts for my master's, and I didn't do art stuff, but I was friends with everybody who did art stuff because it's an art school, and those were people who I've never seen party harder. Like good friends of mine had like pharmacists who built them custom drugs. Like chemical drugs, like pills that they were just like, oh no, tone it down this way a little bit this time. It's like, wow, that's wild. Like I drunk me under the table, like just complete like wild ragers, and also the hardest working people I've ever known in my life, who would like go from having like blocks of wood to having the most amazing, beautiful conceptual artwork you've ever seen in a week. And so like that combination really speaks to me here. Unsurprisingly, Art.
Yeah, it's the last week of Cal Arts all the time now.
Oh boy, I don't think I can stand it. Which is your favorite ship?
I took Curiosity, which is Jack's. I think that fits real well.
That is a really useful combination because now I can just pivot to Jack. And you don't have a least favorite yet, Art?
Yeah, it's probably gonna be Anticipation or Gumption.
Okay, I don't think. I think that's fine. Just to be clear, least favorite doesn't mean like yo fuck those guys. It just means that there's some tension. Or maybe it does mean fuck those guys. You tell me. But in my mind, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So Jack, calling in from the future in England.
I can tell you what it's like here, actually.
Yeah, tell me what it's like.
Dark.
Yeah.
It's dark out. My divine is called Curiosity, although I'm tempted to go elsewhere with that. Austin and I were talking about like perspicacity, potentially.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
Like a sort of insightfulness or a sort of shrewdness.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to go with either, and I think that let's call them curiosity for the purposes of this explanation, and then as we go through it, try and work out if it feels better elsewhere.
Yeah. So what's it do? What's its specialty?
Curiosity reaches out across the galaxy or across human-occupied space or alien-occupied space to turn over stones and see what's underneath.
Okay.
It travels ahead of humans, and it leaves this kind of mesh of waypoints that say to its followers and say to people in general, look, there's something here.
Right.
It's not the way we understand liberty or discovery back in the counterweight days. Like, it doesn't promise worth or success. Right. It doesn't promise that what it finds is valuable. And neither is it particularly interested in the journey to these things. What this divine is fascinated by is building this network of things that interest it.
Right.
And most broadly, it's that sensation, we see it a lot in like AAA developers talking about open world games, where they're like, our world is filled with 500 points of interest.
Yeah. Great.
And at that moment, curiosity would like sit up in its chair and go like, holy shit, all right,
I can't believe you could have built them to look like anything and you made them look like Ubisoft. Fuck.
Right. Yeah, I made them look like Ubisoft.
The divine Ubisoft, yeah.
And so what they look like is they are... I've written down thousands, but I think it's more than that. I think it's tens or hundreds of thousands of hovering linked drones.
Ooh.
That vary in size from the size of the palm of my hand to the size of a small spacecraft.
Okay.
And they move like water when they're working together. When they're not working together, if one's out in the wildlands or whatever...
That's Ubisoft,
out in the Ghost Recon Wildlands. Don't play that game. You might just see it on its own. You just see this thing and you'd think it was a dragonfly and you'd approach it and you'd go, oh, I know what that is.
Right.
And it would be curiosity.
Cool. So what I want to ask this in the right number or the right order, because there's almost a little story that you're telling me here. So what specific ability did it add when it was still alive?
So the thing that it could do was it had this massive list, this inconceivably large list of coordinates.
Okay.
And these coordinates were very, very detailed. So while some of the coordinates described a location in space that seems to be the size of a planet or an asteroid belt, other coordinates described what seems to be a room in a house on a ranch or something. Just varying in scale gigantically.
It's and like the list, not to keep going back to Ubisoft or games, but it's like if you had a list of every object in Skyrim.
Well, so there was a leaked document that came out several years before the release of The Witcher 3.
Right, yes.
That contained a map of the entire Isles of Skellige with something like 500 plotted points on it that they thought players would encounter. And it's kind of that. It's this publicly accessible. It's the information is not... we're talking about a utopia at points here. This information is not kept from people. This information is publicly accessible.
Right, like an artist on Memorius, whatever the ship there is, could be like, oh, wow, I was flipping through the Curiosity's files and found this coordinate and note about a little lumberjack or town on the mountain somewhere. I'm going to tell a story about it, or I'm going to make a painting of that place.
Or go and visit it, or go and see it. So Curiosity is fascinated by the idea of like leaving things hidden for its followers. Not hidden, but like...
geocaching,
it kind of is. Like next to each of these notes, next to each of these coordinates is a note. But it's kind of sometimes what seems to be like frustratingly vague. It might just describe 4 adjectives, or it might just describe a vista, or it might say something like treasure. And people have died looking for coordinates marked treasure that Curiosity left them, or whatever.
Right.
So it's just this gigantic cache of points in space, 3D points in space.
And now it's gone, and the markers.
Or no, the cache is still there.
Right.
But
Sorry,
there are 0 notes.
Right. Yes. So it's still just like it is again, almost like the numbers in arts ships library of just like, great, like, what do I even fucking do with these? I have all of these places.
But the crucial thing is, Curiosity picked them.
Right, sure.
So it's not just a list of meaningless numbers.
It's curated.
Even if it's curated by a machine god that is fascinated by interesting things.
Right. In a way that we aren't. In a way that it could suddenly become deeply interested in one single insect or in the death of billions of people.
Here is something that it's definitely interested in. Falling. And so numerous people have like looked up some coordinates and just like fallen down a ravine, right. Or like plummeted through like a thing. And,
it says it's here, I guess.
And in their last moments, gone like, I see, right, I got it.
Okay, so this actually brings up. If I can rewind back again, here's a question about the world that I actually don't know the answer to. I know that most of the action in this game is going to take place on the planets, and then on the planet that's being colonized, where people are trying to spread the veil, the mesh, whatever we're calling it, along with the various city ships that we're describing now, and all that's happening inside of the Twilight Mirage. Are people getting on their own little ships and leaving the Mirage to go on adventure? Is this a spacefaring like world, or is this like Star Wars in that there is the Millennium Falcon?
I mean, if I'm honest, that's kind of appealing to me.
Yeah,
if
me
what
too.
We're describing is a particular kind of space fantasy. I love the idea that we've got this kind of like, I don't know, we're both playing Prey. We've got this kind of like spoke and wheel structure of the Mirage is here.
Right.
And if we can get enough fuel together, and if we're confident enough that we can get back by the time the orbits sync up or whatever,
right?
Why don't we just go galactic north and see what's there for a bit?
Totally. Are other cultures also doing this? Like, is that also how are there other cultures that also have single ship that have, the ship that has 12 people on it that is like exploring the galaxy, or is like carrying fuel from one space colony to another?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, when I picture this space, I picture it at times busy.
Yeah, me too. Which we didn't really do much of in Counterweight. Like, I think about maybe the stuff on the Kingdom Come after leaving Counterweight, where it's like dealing with the space police who are like pulling them over and doing inspections and stuff, that gestured sort of to the notion of like commerce and transport and stuff. But even then, it felt like small. It felt like, oh yeah, we get a couple of ships in and out every day, but people aren't just like out there exploring because it's dangerous.
The way I'd sell it would be like, think about how cool that kind of Star Wars / Battlestar Galactica style comms chatter of all of the ports and all of the like lit harbors of this nebula is, with ships leaving and arriving and people welcoming each other back, or being frightened that someone has come into port, or
right. Oh shit, that ship landed. Right.
Yeah.
It's almost a swashbuckling vibe.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay. So how did Curiosity die?
Oh dear. Curiosity found a thing.
Uh-huh.
And what it found is my ship. My ship is not tied to my divine.
Okay.
My ship is this... I picture it as like looking like a snow globe is on top of the Nostromo from Alien.
Uh-huh.
Just like horrible mechanical undercarriage of tubes and wires and exhaust ports and jets. And then on top of that, just this beautiful snow globe, inside of which is a gigantic darkened city. Like a massive city. And Curiosity looked at this and went like, oh my god, what the hell is this? So Curiosity and its followers landed on board this ship. And when they got inside, they found something really strange, which was that people seem to have been here, and like fairly recently. Like, clothes are still laid out on beds in houses that they found. Refrigerators are still stocked, even if the power has been cut to them. Right. There's just nobody. They've just gone. And there's like absolutely no sign why. At first, the whole city had like no power. There was no power whatsoever. But Curiosity and their followers managed to bring online like one district. where they've kind of made their home and made their hub. And through like a load of work translating a language they couldn't read, they're fairly sure that this ship is called the Sky Reflected in Mirrors. They call it Mirrors.
Right, of course.
But that might be a mistranslation. They're not sure. Unfortunately, one day, the entire fleet of Curiosity, which is, hundreds of or tens of thousands of tiny drones, picked up on a signal somewhere deep inside Mirrors and set off, leaving its followers behind. And it never came back, ever?
Cool. Good. That's useful for everybody. Here's a question. Did the people who followed Curiosity, was there a knowledge or like a culture of kind of knowing that it was an aloof god?
I think we talk about how the divine, we've come to realize that the divines are not us.
Yes.
And I think that there were two impulses for the followers of Curiosity. The first was, look at this strange thing that is showing us things. And the second thing is, what is a god curious about?
Right.
And so even if some of their higher ups were kind of like, or even if like the majority of their populace was kind of like, geez, falling again, fucking great. That was my cousin, too foul. There's definitely this religious aspect of like what fascinates a god, and we want to be on that journey.
Totally. That's interesting. That's good. What good ships y'all have made. I'm so excited to play this game. Tell me about your rules, the one that you share with other cultures and the one that is just kind of unique to yours.
So I wrote down leave no stone unturned, and then literally as I was looking at it, I kind of realized, like, yeah, that's an idiom that we have, rather than like I kind of came at that idiom backwards.
Right, because you had described Curiosity as this thing that's like, it turns over a stone and is excited at revealing anything, even if it's bugs, basically.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the example that I gave to Austin when Curiosity discovered Sky Reflected in Mirrors was that it turned over a stone expecting to see bugs.
Oh, right.
And instead saw a word written on the bottom of the stone. And just went like, oh, wow, okay.
I gotta go in here. This is safe.
This looks safe to me. But no, like, when we talk about leave no stone unturned in English as an idiom, I don't think it has the immediacy that the followers of Curiosity feel that it has.
Right, because like when we say leave no stone unturned, what we mean is because we are currently searching for a thing, let's be thorough. Let's be rigorous. Let's make sure we don't miss anything. But this is like a way of life. This is like constantly be finding stones to turn over.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, like, I want to be real here in the sense that, like, often that's really fucking boring. You know?
Right.
Often they turn over a stone and go, great, we found some earth.
But you can imagine how if this is a larger cultural rule that's shared across the fleet, that, like, oh yeah, this has been part of why the 30,000 years were good. Like, we didn't settle. It's why it's a fleet. It's why it's a fleet and not a space station. Right?
There's also something that happens quite a lot in the UK, or I say quite a lot. It happens with some frequency, but not enough for it to be frequent, is that people will just find treasure. You know, you'll be plowing a field as a farmer, and you'll turn over some Roman gold. And there are like several instances of this happening within my lifetime, of people just like demolishing a stone wall and finding 900 Saxon coins
What was that
inside.
thing? God, this happened. It might be in our season 6 chat, just lost forever now. But this happened recently with like, I was just redoing my basement and then I found a city underneath or something. Or like an old church.
Like, I mean, like, that tracks in London. Like, London literally is built on top of the Roman London.
Right.
But, like, you know, the followers of Curiosity exist in a place where that stuff happens to them fairly frequently because they just keep doing it, you know.
Right.
If every field I went into I dug up, I'd find treasure eventually. And I think the rule that the people of this culture hold that others don't, because it's so specific, I wrote, it's holy to become lost within the Sky Reflected in Mirrors. And I don't know if I like the word holy here, but I want something that conveys that. So, maybe holy. There is something very exciting to me about this idea of a gigantic darkened city of which only one district is lit.
Yeah.
full of something that somewhere in this city is something that killed a god.
Yeah.
Or persuaded a god to never return to its flock. And there is something exciting to me about the fact that the inhabitants of this city believe that it is good to become lost in it.
And everyone else is like, they are out of their minds. Like, we're at not war necessarily, but like,
Right. Totally, but I mean, also, like, you know, if you're someone from another ship and you land on mirrors, like, oh man, it's a bit like meeting the dwarves in Friends at the Table, right? In Hyron, where you like you go down a corridor and a door is just open and the corridor next to it is unlit,
right?
And you're walking with the ambassador, and the ambassador just says like, "Yeah, we don't go down there. Like, you can't. It's we just don't go down there. I might, but like." Don't do that.
You don't do that. Yeah, totally. Cool. Okay. Did we miss anything? We talked about the inside pretty much, right? We talked about
fashion.
Fashion. Yes, fashion. How could I forget fashion?
So I think that this is in two parts. The people inside mirrors carry lanterns or torches with them at all times, because they know that they just might be in a place that doesn't have any electricity or light. Or they'll be going into dark spaces. And similarly, when they are abroad, you can tell people from mirrors by the fact that they wear sunglasses because they're unused to brightly lit spacecraft.
Is this just an excuse so that your character can always wear cool sunglasses?
No. For a number of reasons, Austin.
Oh, fair. Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. We'll get there very soon, I think.
No, but like, I was thinking about this, and like, it's totally not that like, oh, everyone just wears like cool Blues Brothers sunglasses. I like the idea that a cultural marker is that there are fucking people going around in like the most like, we've posted a bunch of fashion stuff in season 6 chat, and there are a bunch of people going around in like the most fucking ridiculous sunglasses.
Yes.
Constantly.
It's
and
good,
everyone's
actually.
like, oh
You
yeah,
guys
you're
stop
from
talking
Arizona.
about my sunglasses while I'm right here.
Oh, God.
So I guess finally, like, in terms of this period of instability, the people of Sky Reflected in Mirrors are doing the thing that you would expect them to do, but with a kind of ferocity, which is that they are rapidly, disconcertingly attempting to expand into mirrors in an attempt to find either the divine or its body. They are not equipped for this. Everything that their own internal plans have laid out for expansion into the city does not account for expansion this fast, but teams are leaving and they're almost racing to be the one to find the body of the divine.
Right. Here's a question. Are there like other ships from this culture that are near the city reflected in mirror, or the sky reflected in mirrors? Or has everyone moved on to this ship at this point?
Everyone's moved on to the ship.
Okay.
I think that like something within the character of these people would be that they'd probably just charter carriers to get them
but where
to the
did
ship.
they live before? When they were following Curiosity, where were they living?
I think they were living all over, if I'm honest. I think it was
so they
kind
were
of a
like
fairly
distributed. Okay, interesting.
And then this thing that the god couldn't resist drew them towards this
Right.
Towards this object.
Love it. Awesome. Okay. I think that's everyone except me, right? So I didn't write answers to any of these because I was busy with all the other prep shit. And also because this divine is still alive. My divine is Empyrean, which is a word I learned today by going through all of the word of the days of the last little while. And Empyrean means that it belongs to or derives from heaven, but like specifically like high above, right? There's an adjective version of it, imperial, which means both like pertaining to the highest heaven in the cosmology of the ancients, but also meaning just like sublime. Like, oh, it's just fucking imperial out here today, guys. What a good day. It's beautiful. It's imperial. I'm going to start saying that just regularly and just see if I can bring it back. I know it says archaic here, but I'm going to do it. The things that it is continuing to do is create the Mirage, the Twilight Mirage, which is this false nebula, which is hiding the divine fleet as best it can. Empyrean specialities or specialty has been most recently it's the creation of the Twilight Mirage that everyone's hiding inside, but its kind of core function is this spread of mixed reality, this augmented reality that everyone just lives in on the ships. That hasn't fully spread to the colony yet, that the planet game will be taking place in. That'll be part, again, of what their mission is. But that is like, it is constantly doing that in a way that was kind of, again, similar to what was happening on September. So that's like their biggest major thing. I don't think, I haven't really decided yet if there is like a mech version of Empyrean. My guess is yes. And that it has wings and is like, there's a reason I like this word, is like it also has the kind of homophone of imperial is right there. And so I can kind of like very easily see it being that sort of tall geese style Roman mech thing. I don't want to fall down that trap too much, but I do like the notion of something that has bird-like qualities, something that would lift it high up into the sky and kind of gesture towards the fact that it is basically a divine about aspiring to heights. On the ship itself, which also doesn't have a name yet, the thing that it adds for the fleet primarily is that it's the biggest city that there is. It is like, in terms of pure where people go to live, that it is the biggest urban center. It is a cylinder, on which on each side of the cylinder, like wrapping all around, is a large Victorian looking city. And it's just out in space. There isn't a cover. There isn't a dome around it. It's just, there are city streets and you look up and you're in space, except you're in the Twilight Mirage, which means it's just a city in which it is always sunrise or sunset forever. And you can feel air on your face. It's kind of cool. There are lots of parks. There are lakes on the side of this ship going through space. So that's the kind of like basic gist of it. I do not yet have my rules because, again, I was trying to figure out all the rest of what this society and culture were. But I do think that its tone is something I know, which is there is a sort of resignation in which the people here had previously been people who had lots of power, being the people who have the keys to the virtual reality that everybody lives in is very good and powerful, and like you're necessarily going to have lots of influence. And they still have some influence, but there's a resignation that maybe it's time to step away and let the people who have more active divines or who had more active divines step up, and now the second divine just died. And so now they're just like, well, fuck. Because part of creating the Twilight Mirage means that Empyrean is not like around as a divine with an excerpt that is reachable in the same way that some of the other divines had previously been, right? Like, it's the case for when there were 300 divines that for many cultures, like, oh yeah, that's our divine. It flies around sometimes and it's like, I wave and it like gives me a salute or something, like there's something really personal about a lot of the divines. And there was something personal about Empyrean too, but now that it's doing this Twilight Mirage thing, it's not dead, but it's dispersed in such a way that it is not there anymore. And that is really weird because there's also this sort of guilt of like, well, our divine is still here, which that's not true for anybody else. But also it's kind of not, but I feel like a dick complaining because it's still here. And so I think that's the basic tone right now. I think their least favorite is probably Anticipation's ship, but that's also
oh my god,
their most favorite. They think that ship should take over as leader, but also hate the thought of it. There's this like weird double movement of like, oh, well, the Anticipation crew will see things forward, won't they? And like, okay, yep, good old days are behind us now, And I think that's what I got for them right now. So let's go through just character concepts broadly here. I just kind of want basic character, like now we know where everybody's from. Let's talk about, actually let's do it set up by game. We'll do space game first, and then we'll do planet game. And that'll help us like even things out, or like hammer out what some of the details are. Jack.
Hi. So my character is, should we talk about playbooks as well, very briefly?
Yeah, let's talk about
point?
playbooks, definitely.
Okay, so I'm playing a character called The Dying, or that's the playbook I'm using.
Yeah.
The basic pitch for The Dying is, and I'm just going to read from the playbook, The Dying is suffering from a non-communicable, slowly debilitating disease that is slowly destroying you. You may or may not be aware of your ultimate demise, but what you are aware of is the symptoms. Although your condition also grants you boons, you will succumb to it. There is no cure, but there may be hope, grace, or whatever you wish to find at the end of your tale.
Yeah.
So my character this season is like very explicitly going to die.
Yep.
So my character is somebody called 1415. That's not numbers. It's just words. Their first name is 14 and their second name is 15. But I guess it's not like a call sign or a tag or a marker.
Right. This was the name you've always had, as far as you know.
Yeah, this was the name. This was the name their parents gave them.
Their parents, Jack and Jill, 15.
Right, they came from the 15 family.
Right.
Their first name just happens to be 14.
Right.
And their pitch basically is they are a body-swapping bounty hunter from an elite agency who is transported to their location via data packages and able to track targets functionally anywhere, disguised as functionally anybody. So the way this works is 1415 does not have a body. They are a human. They were a human. They were born. They lived a life. And then they joined the agency. And now they're data. And their data is transmitted to the location they need to be, whereupon they take on the body of something there, and now they're that thing.
Right. You painted me a picture of this when you pitched it to me, which was like...
Should I describe the one that I picked?
Yeah, the one that says, "This is the image."
Okay, so...
That's the one that I like.
So here's the pitch for 1415, is that a man fleeing from somebody arrives on a ship, and he is ecstatic, because he's gotten through the escape. He's doing great. He's fantastic. And he goes through passport control, and he hands his paper passport with the electronic tag in, or like passports have, to the border guard. And she picks up his passport, and she looks through it, and the guy's a bit nervous, and he's shifting. But she says, like, "Okay, sure, yeah, you can go through." And then as he begins to go through, she, like, calls him back. She's like, "Hey, weird. All the numbers in your passport are, like, consecutive numerically. Like it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. And the man freezes because he knows that that's not his passport number. And as the woman said that aloud, a woman in a big wide-brimmed hat sat up on the other side of the passport control booth and began walking towards the man. And in that moment, 1415 has arrived on the ship and is tracking their target.
Like as that woman who stood up. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Great. I'm very excited
Unfortunately,
about this character.
They're dying, which means that their data package is deteriorating with each jump. Each body swap they do, the data gets more and more corrupted and will eventually just come to nothing.
Good times. Always a good time at the Smalls. Yeah, we're all dying.
I've been rewatching that. It's so good.
Me too. I've actually started rewatching it like last week. It's Home Movies. If you haven't seen it, go watch Home Movies. This show is basically just us doing home movies, to be clear.
Austin, shh.
Okay. All right. So that's and there's more stuff here that we could get into with your playbook, but let's do that in the actual first game proper. So let's move on to. Let's do Allie first, because for me, it's kind of like a thing.
Okay, hi.
Everybody's is a thing. Space game, y'all got some characters.
So I guess I'll start with the playbook that I'm doing, which
Mhm.
is an architect. I'll read the thing as well, which is the architect lives and breathes in the Veil. You have a powerful cyber brain that you can use to change aspects of the digital environments at will. My character's name is Tender Sky, and she is very literally an architect. She designs and builds environments in the mesh. She was sent to a planet to do that, but I am unfortunately not on the planet game.
No, weird.
No, she was exiled and sent back to the ships because a thing happened. I don't know what that thing is, but nobody likes her
No, but,
anymore.
like,
She lost her
but
job.
Right. And the first entry on this playbook is subconscious. When you enter any digital environment, you may frame the scene. Choose 3 things that will bleed over into the digital environment from your mind, often without your knowledge. A former friend, a jilted lover who knew you better than most, a family member as you remember them, the manifestation of your fear, a place you lived once, your true self, your repressed fantasies, the catacombs of your deepest memories, limbo. This class is like very, very
Inception.
and the Matrix, like,
Yeah.
blended together. And we are not just going to do Inception and the Matrix, but we already did a lot of what the mesh was in Counterweight was in line with this stuff. Like, we kind of figured that out with Mako, that it was like, oh no, you go into a house, right? A house during a wake. And so this just fits very nicely with what this world's established augmented reality spaces slash networked spaces already look like. And so I'm very excited for this. And yeah, I'm sure everything went great on the planet. There's no way any weird past stuff is going to come bubbling up.
Yeah, no, she doesn't have any problems at all. She's not gonna, like, genuinely be sort of a mean person. Or isn't able to deal with any of that.
Great.
It's gonna be great.
Totally.
So this is, I said up front very specifically that this is an anime.
Yeah, you did.
And so in Counterweight, we had, like, people who were able to genetically modify to be, like, I don't like any of my friends. Genetically modified to, like,
The chat is making all sorts of symbols because everyone knows where we're going. And sounds.
Have, like, different color hair, or, like, if they wanted tails, they could have it, or, like, different color skin. And I think that over a long enough timeline, people can just be cat girls, and that's who Tender Sky is.
Tender Sky, the cat girl.
Yeah, I, like, in my mind, when I
The
sort of
mean
picture
cat
her-
girl.
Right.
Yeah. Hi, I'm living my best life. I don't know. I don't know anyone else.
I said this is the season.
If the first episode doesn't have you angrily hissing at somebody,
Oh my god. Oh.
But yeah, that's her.
Cool. I'm glad that you were holding that back. Like, oh, are we gonna talk about more stuff? Is that just good enough, Austin? Is that you're gonna let these people go a week or 2 without knowing that Tender Sky was a cat girl, was a mean cat girl? God damn. Shit.
It's a slow burn.
Great, good, great and good. Janine, tell me about your character.
Okay, so my playbook is the onomastic. You are the last of your kind. Your order was once an integral part of the Veil and the world. Now, though, that time has passed. Hunted and destroyed by the iconoclasts, you are now the last of your order, the last with the power of true names, and charged with the protection of the last cybertome.
Excuse me, the last what?
Cybertome.
Computer book?
Are you sure that's not Cyber Tomb? Like I thought it was for a week and tweeted about?
I also have a cybertomb is the problem. There's 2.
So tell me about your character.
So my character is
What's
I'm still kind of working on the name, but the name is they mark scars of light and pitch, born in fiercest purpose, and beheld as the signet sealed upon our pact. Or signet, for short. Ellipses, signet, ellipses.
Good.
Fucking Jesus Christ.
They are a former excerpt and a current reliquary. They were Belgard's excerpt who left them.
Right. when Belgard died because their excerpt fled. Here
Yes.
they are.
Yep.
Good
That's
job.
Signet.
Oh, this is good. So tell me a little bit more, because I don't want to get into specific moves necessarily, but you do have two very important things, which are your sanctuary and then the iconoclasts.
Yes.
Because those are both pretty broad, important things for each game, I think. So, what's your sanctuary?
Signet's sanctuary, or my sanctuary, is basically the disabled body of Belgard. Specifically, one of the options here is the shell of it. I don't think they would gut a divine.
No.
But I imagine the cockpit of Belgard's cockpit is like a large sort of open round space that she would have had tethers to kind of hold her more or less in the middle of, but she would sort of move acrobatically through it, interacting with an interface in that space, not a straight up sit down kind of cockpit. So there's room in there, and that's her sanctuary that she retreats to. There are specific qualities of that sanctuary. Do we want to?
I don't have to get very specific. I think that's enough. I think that's close enough.
Yeah, that's okay.
And the reason that comes up is because one of your moves is being able to just go there, which is cool. So
yes.
That'll come up at some point, I'm sure.
And also, that's a move, but also a thing that just happens when I share a moment of intimacy with someone. It's no, we're going to the robot now.
Great. And then the iconoclasts, which then the book just says, they're coming for you. They never stop, and they've already taken the rest of your order. Under their disguises, they look like, and then, but...
So I've picked, and this might be a little too broad, this might be a thing we need to talk about. I picked the past or future of humanity for what they look like.
Sure.
That seemed like the natural choice.
Yeah.
Given some other things. But they have no faces. They are made of strange materials.
Cool. Good.
I got a face motif going on, people with faces, people without faces. That's my thing.
All sorts of faces. Good. I need to make a note of the things you just said real quick. Those are just a quick little... All right, cool. Good happy times. Okay. That's the space game where everyone's good. Good ethical secret police. We need to come up with a name for whatever your agency is, and that'll be fun. In my mind, this is very much when we talked about the space game, some of our other touchstones were TV police procedurals. Jag was one of mine.
Psych. You love Psych.
I hate Psych, actually.
Burn Notice.
Maybe Burn Notice. I haven't seen enough Burn Notice. I believe you that Burn Notice is cool. The one of the things that I really loved the notion of was the early Supreme Court justices in the U.S. The first batch of them literally were just dispatched to go do law and solve local problems, which is not really what you guys are doing. So maybe that's more of a ground game thing. So let's talk about ground game. I have notes on what the three things you're being sent to the ground game or being sent to this planet for, y'all. And I want to tell you them now so you can start turning them over in your head. One is at some point during the last 300 years, people saw their divines dying, even though they seemed to stabilize at 8. Suddenly they started dying again. And so people left the fleet and said, fuck it, this is a planet that's good enough to live on. It isn't perfect. It doesn't have the special thing that potency has been here and fixed up, but I can build a town here and we can live here with my family, good enough. Or maybe it was one that potency was already starting to fix and then not so much anymore. And so part of your job is to go down to this planet and bring them back into the fold. And that means solving their problems and building rapport with them and trying to get them into your culture again. The second thing you have to do is to spread the mesh further. I've established that the last remaining divine's power is really only wherever the mesh is, or it is the mesh that's spread to a place. And so the goal is to spread that, and that also ties up with potency's thing, which is as that spreads, potency, or not potency, but the remains of what's the ever forward can begin the terraforming stuff once the mesh is spread enough and the nodes are placed. And then the third thing is there is a rumor, you were told that there is another divine hiding alive somewhere on this planet. So those are all good, fun things. I have some other notes here about what this ground game should feel like, and tell me, remaining people, if this sounds good or bad to you. God rays breaking through a canopy, spores, Monster Hunter. The rest of this is spoilers, so I'm not going to say them. But those are like some broad things for me. I talked to y'all a while ago, and I think Andy was the one who suggested that there would be these like little frontier towns, and not just one central hub. And I think I like that, especially because now like the central hub will be yours, and the other towns will have been there for a few generations. Are there any other broad questions about what this game looks like before we go to characters? And that's Art, Andy, Keith, and Dre.
Yeah, what's secretly horrible about all of us?
I mean, you're colonizers, right? So like to some degree that, but you guys can trust that I am not going to run the game that's just like, and it's a vibrant world where it's everything was perfect. It was like the manifest destiny that you found this place, and it's going to be perfect and good, and it's all yours. So like, for me, the big ethical quandary here is like, are you allowed to take what you need? What if you're fleeing a terrible thing like the death of your entire culture? And so I think that it is, I think that stuff is prickly in a really good way. And I want to do right by it. I played Mass Effect Andromeda this year and don't think that did that. Partially because they didn't set it up as a refugee story in the way that I think this is in some ways. Like, you are going to try to find a home for people because the homes in space are beginning to fall apart. And that doesn't just mean that you have carte blanche to do whatever you want, but it does mean that you are not a colonizing power looking to expand its base. And I think that's an important distinction that I want to work through with y'all. But it's something that is probably worth thinking about for sure. Any other larger questions about what you're doing, or like the setting? I'm going to do my best to like really leave blank spaces here. One of the other big influences for me for this for sure is Breath of the Wild, and that notion of just like, there's stuff in every direction. Like, we have to go plant these nodes in a bunch of places. That means we can investigate in any direction. And I've always kind of wanted to do a game like that. That's just like, pick a direction and go and explore, and the exploration will be fun and lighthearted and like adventurous in that traditional way. Where hopefully we can tell a great story in which it's just about getting stuck in a weird cave, and then like having to get out, or like coming to a place and then seeing movement in the sand, like that, those sorts of stories that we don't do a lot in our show because we have gotten caught up in politics and history a lot. And I love politics and history, and we will still have those in this game. But I really want to hit an almost procedural vibe here of adventure story, because we've never done it, and I want to flex those muscles a little bit.
So this game is like, if you see a mountain, you can go there?
You can go there. Yeah, totally. Yes. And because we're designing the game as we go, there will always be something on that mountain.
Sure.
Also because you have future robots. Also because you probably have a list of points provided to you by Curiosity, right? Like, that's a probably easy way to make it why, like, you never go somewhere and there's literally nothing. Maybe it's a cliff you fall off. But
yeah, here it's a lot of cliffs.
But we just don't do the cliff episode. We start an episode one time and like, Art, your character has a cast, and it's like, what happened? I went to it was a cliff. I fell.
I like the idea that all these people are falling down because Curiosity told them to go somewhere. They didn't look to see where they were going.
Faith,
They're
man.
just like, instead of standing right here.
Nowhere. Standing right here. Maybe there was a time when Curiosity told them to go somewhere and it looked like it was going to fall, and then it was like the Last Crusade thing of invisible bridge or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That bridge wasn't invisible, right? It was just painted to look like the rocks.
Yeah. I don't know. They've got like aliens and hearts beating out of your chest and stuff, so it might have just been an invisible bridge.
That's true.
They have the chalice of like Jesus, so
the chalice of Jesus.
Literally in that one. That's what they called it, right?
That's what they called it. Gotta go get the chalice.
They called it the challenge. Yeah.
Let's talk about characters on the Planet game. Who wants to go first?
I can go.
Okay, Dre, let's talk. I mean, yeah, you're doing this whole thing, this whole going down to the ground thing, and that's what your ship does. So, tell me about your character.
Yeah, so my character's name is Even Gardner, and the class I'm playing is the Catabolist. The Catabolist is obsessed with integrating cybernetic systems into their own body, but rejects all conventional cybernetic processes. Only through their own means are they able to take tech, modify it, and make use of it.
So that means like you can't just go to the store and get a new cyber arm.
No, I have to use my weird... so the game calls it your Omni tool, but it's cool because it gives you a lot of kind of freedom to figure out like what that Omni tool looks like. Like basically the rules are like, I don't know, man, you tell us what it looks like. Yeah. And here's like a couple tags you can put on it.
Totally.
So I think Gardner's Omni tool is... So on one of the planets they went to, they found this weird like symbiote thing that could let basically animals kind of crossbreed with each other by basically like it would connect to both of them and like kind of interchange like genetics and DNA and stuff. And they have found a way to basically turn that into a kind of cyborg animal that is latched into Gardner's nervous system.
Cool.
It allows him to interface with technology directly.
So like a biomechanical animal that's in you?
It like is so when it's folded up on his back, it just looks like a little like gray like just like a gray like pod on his back.
Sure.
But then it can kind of unfold into this metallic spider.
You have a cyber armadillo.
No, it's a spider.
spider.
Not an armadillo.
Well, but it's a spider literally, but it curls up into a ball on your back.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Because that's where the port into like my nervous system is. But yeah.
Cool. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And so then when I find new pieces of tech, the spider basically like interfaces it with it and lets it basically... It somehow converts the technology into a language that like is congruent with Gardner's like genetic makeup and allows him to make changes to it.
Yeah. So
Okay,
the other big thing... yeah,
well,
hey, Jack.
When art was like... Okay, slightly further back. When you were all cross with me for being a body swapping bounty, that's step one. Then step two was art was like, well, what's the horrifying thing about us? And we found it. We found it really quickly. It's the mechanical spider that is latched onto Dre.
Not just onto, but into. It's
into
his nervous system.
God, we found it so fast.
But like the thing for me is like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, yes. And no one looks at him and is like, I mean, a few people look at him and go like, oh, what a weirdo. But like, no, this is how we got to Divines, is people made weird spider things on their back or whatever. Like, this is the culture of synthesis between humans or between organic and synthetic life. And so there is something really like desirable or admirable or holy about this notion. It's still maybe a little weird, like in the way that like I don't necessarily, not everybody who goes to the Catholic Church is also going to go on missions for the Catholic Church, or whatever. But like you can see how those things, if you do attend a Catholic Church, if you are faithful, you see someone who goes off on a mission, they come back and you go like, oh wow, it's incredible, you went off on a mission. You don't go like, what a weirdo. Or maybe you do, because I grew up Catholic and you kind of still did do that because you were judgy. You know what I mean, though. Cool. The other big thing with this class is the ideology. Do you have that figured out?
So yeah, the ideology is basically like, why is your character willing to do this weird stuff?
Yeah.
And for Gardner, it's fear has me. I believe I shouldn't do this, but the alternative is worse. So Gardner is like a pilot on the Ever Forward, and he's old, and he's really kind of just like he's losing his touch, and his body is ready for him to retire, but he's not ready to retire. Like he feels his service isn't done.
Is that especially given the scenario? Like, how do you retire right now? Come on.
Yeah. So he's volunteered to try to do the test run of this horrible spider thing.
Cool. Good. Yeah, great. Fear has made people do worse things. So, than weird spiders in their body. Great. Who's next?
I could go.
Sure.
I don't have a name for this character yet, and honestly, my current idea is probably bad. The character is a mech designer.
Awesome.
They design like these really elaborate. I've been thinking that there's no reason that mech would still be full, 2 legs, 2 arms,
Right. Totally.
bipeds.
This is the place for your hypercat, Keith.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I'm thinking even like hypercats are too.
No,
are
that's
too
just
simple.
that's just a cat.
Yeah, that's really just a person on its side.
Yeah, I'm a
Okay,
cat.
wait. True. Okay, I was gonna stop him, but that's a good point. You are a cat.
I'm just saying, like from a design perspective.
Right. No, I get you.
I don't mean to besmirch humans or cats, honestly.
No, I get it, but like there are other designers who just do a really classical human mech design, and you're out here trying to fucking push boundaries.
Yeah, and he was doing really well on his ship, and building mechs, trading them, selling them, whatever. But like, there's only so far you can do though. Like, eventually, everyone who wants one has one.
Right.
And what are you gonna do? You're gonna keep incrementally moving? No, you're going to throw your life away and go to this planet to get some authenticity that you can use to like.
Are you a hipster? Are you a?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's a hipster mech designer.
Fuck.
I don't know if you know this, but the first mechs were used to clear timber,
I hate my
and
life.
so going to this planet is a way to like
Oh,
connect to the roots of mech design and make something even better for my next round.
There was a bit a couple of days ago where Art messaged me to say like, I think I'm coming across like I think this character might just be an asshole, and I was like, oh, that's kind of good actually.
It's actually the best thing, right?
It's really good. Well, my favorite thing is that the class you're playing is the playbook you're playing is the aesthetic, which is from the Veil Cascade, which is I guess a forthcoming expansion that there's like a demo version of. And like the moves aren't like engineering moves. This is an artist skill, right? Like, or a playbook, basically. Like your first move is called Beauty is Truth, Truth is Beauty. When you take something you feel, an idea you wish to convey, or both, and express yourself by way of your chosen art, whether performed or presented, and it is experienced by others, roll on a 10 plus choose 3, on a 7 to 9 choose 2. People comprehend what it is you intend to convey. One person in particular must meet you. The MC tells you who they are. You spike out the state of your choice in anyone who experiences your art, which is to say that like you can make someone really mad or really sad or really happy. The experience either begins to change popular opinion, a value, or otherwise alter a sense of self in those who witness it. Tell the MC what it is you hope for, or you
give this one the proper space. This last one I think is an amazing thing.
Inflict humanity harm to all that experience it. The Veil has a notion of humanity harm, not just regular harm, which is like what it sounds like. It's like your humanity has been wounded. It's more than just physical harm. It shakes you, which is so good. And the thing that I actually love about this is the character who says we could build them to look like anything, and if I build it just so, like, I can enact change. I can do a thing with this. I can make people feel a certain way. It's also just like the answer, like every Gundam show has the thing of just like, oh, it's a Gundam, people shout, terrified. Like, yeah, because Art's character sat up in a fucking lab late designing it so that when you saw it, you'd go like, it's a Gundam. That's this character.
Yeah, and I like the idea that guy has just decided, like, you know what I gotta do right now? I'm gonna go camping.
God, what an asshole. God. Oh, Jack, do you need to repeat the bit about terror finding terror in the ground party again?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, oh god, I'm just excited that we have 2 full-length seasons of Art playing like really stoic, troubled people struggling against things, and now he's like, I'm going camping.
Yep.
I'm going to build
so
terrifying mechs.
But like,
very
I love it
exciting.
I'm just excited for like someone in a little frontier town to be like, well, what we really need is a vehicle to move the water
This fucking asshole arrived.
from over at the lake to where we're at. And what you gave me is a living diamond machine. That don't help.
I think you'll find it does. If you put enough of it in the water will relocate itself.
Son, we can't get the water from the lake. How are we going to get the diamond machine to the water? It's bigger than the water.
I feel like this is a problem of vision.
Janine in the chat says we cannot do another water moving season. Good point. Okay. What is that's the character basically, right? There's nothing else there to add, Art.
Yeah, it's that and a sneer.
Perfect. Good. Let's oh boy, two more to go, everybody. We're gonna make it through.
We talk a lot.
We do talk a lot, but that's what we're here for. We're here to talk a lot.
Yeah.
Hi.
So mine's tricky. I had a couple ideas. The first one that I really fleshed out, I scrapped because I decided it was too X-Files.
Okay.
It was just like it seemed like something I really could have like pitched to a writer's room, but not something that would fit for a podcast.
Okay.
That
happens.
Then my second thing was as I was thinking about it, I feel like it's too similar to Art's in one specific way, in the mech way. I feel like I had like a tinkerer character that was making like small robots, maybe.
Okay.
But they would be like equipment or cybernetics and not like it's not part of my character's actual thing.
Right.
But yeah, I feel it's too similar. So I can talk about the character as sort of like a person, but not any sort of like actual quantifiable lore motivation, I guess.
Sure.
But I'm playing the empath, which I'm excited about.
is-
The empath is super cool. The empath is in tune with the people around them and their emotions. They interact with emotions as tangible charged energy fields that can be manipulated and appropriated for their own purposes.
Yeah. Well, like,
Whether this ability... Oh,
Go ahead.
whether this ability is uncanny or futuristic or explained is all up to you. Oh, this is part of the...
Right. But like, so for me, the key thing here that's very good is like, this is a game that's about emotions. I kind of mentioned that before a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing to know is like, this game doesn't have strength and charisma. It doesn't have cool. It doesn't have hot, none of the stats that a traditional Powered by the Apocalypse game does have. Like, it doesn't have the stat that is used for punching people or the stat that is used for knowing things. Instead, it has states. And its states are mad, peaceful, sad, joyful, scared, and powerful. And whatever you do, what happens is I go, what do you do? And then you describe it. And then I go, well, how are you feeling about doing this? And then, you say like, oh, well, this is the asshole who I had to deal with every day in school. So, I'm sort of like, on one hand, it's like I'm mad because I'm thinking about what happened before, but I think really what I am is like satisfied that I'm finally able to get back at him. Like, oh, well, satisfied, that's like powerful. So roll powerful. And that is why I'm excited to run this game. And the empath is built around that stuff, in that the empath has ways to like push and pull on people's states, and also to like check out what happened in the past in terms of emotion and stuff like that. We'll have to figure out what the thing is. Like, tell me about them as a person, I guess.
One of the first hints of what sort of character I was going to be playing comes basically right out of the prompts that the book gives you. One of the things on the playbook that it says, like, hey, here's something you should be thinking about, is what they call the burden.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, any sort of mind reading or empath movie or whatever has a moment like this, where it's like, talk about how it makes you feel that you're being bombarded by emotion all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that the progression of their life is like, hey, you know, you have this ability, and then trying to move further and further away from like having to deal with it all the time. Like, not maybe it's not even overwhelming. It's just like work. Like, it's so hard to have to be processing this all the time, even if it's not debilitating, and it's still like, man, every time I'm counting, I also am hearing other things. So I think their job when they were on Gumption's Gambit was sort of slow. Like, each successive move that they made was like, oh well, first I have a shop, and then I'm here, and now I'm I have them picturing I have them inside the sort of the public greenhouse. Like, it's not built in a way that can sustain like parks and you know,
right.
So, but I think that there's like places like that. Like, there's an atrium and a greenhouse or whatever, like the closest thing that they can get. And then after trying to be like, okay, well, if I'm around people, it's going to be around people who are like marveling at stuff. Like, that's probably the easiest. That's the easiest like emotion to process from people, is like people who are just loving some shit.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then when they're not around people, they're around, you know, plants, which probably they're not giving off
vibes.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least not in the same way. And then maybe either because that was a positive experience, or maybe because it wasn't enough of a reprieve, they're like, I'm gonna fucking go.
I'm signing up for this colony shit. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
I think that's totally enough for a character concept. Like, you and I should work out why you can do the thing you do, if you even know. Maybe it's a mystery. But we should have that talk. And then, but other than that all sounds fine to me. I'm into it.
I was gearing towards, like, because it says it can be uncanny or futuristic.
Yeah.
And I was leaning towards uncanny just because I like that more for some of it. But I also don't want it to be like the same premise as Mako Trig, but with emotions instead of internet.
Yeah, totally. 100% with you. I mean, the real thing that we do have to be careful of is that, like, we're not careful of, but like, the thing that we should have the talk about is, in Counterweight, there were induced strati, and also natural strati, who did not have to just be about the internet. And I don't necessarily want you to play a Stratus twice in a row, but on the other hand, the thing you're describing might just be a Stratus. So I need to revisit the lore and make sure that this isn't just a Stratus by another name, or else, which if it is, you know,
right,
which is totally cool and interesting.
Yeah.
But if it isn't that, if that's not what we want to do, then we should figure out a specific reason for why you have these powers, so that it doesn't just fall into that because it's 7 months from now and we're like, well, I guess that's the thing it is, you know?
Yeah. I agree. That's part of why I've been having trouble coming up with a solid thing, is like, I don't, because it didn't, when I first picked it, it didn't feel at all like doing Mako again. Yep. But then, like, the more I was like, okay, well, what sort of things can I do? Yep. Everything ended up coming up Mako.
Totally.
Except for the first thing, but again, 2 X-Files.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And last but not least,
hello,
Andy.
So I guess I'll talk about. Okay, so first, my character's name is Echo Reverie.
Yeah.
Oh, good point. My character's name is Coin Stollard.
Right, we didn't say names. Coin.
Yeah.
Coin Stollard. Andy, tell me about your character.
So yeah, my character's name is Echo Reverie, and thank you. I'm going to be using the Honed playbook. Basically, the whole thing with the Honed is that they have no cybernetics, they're not connected to the Veil in any way. You're the same decaying matter as everybody else. The difference between you and them, you've taken it and honed it into the precision instrument you now wield to achieve your will. You are not a part of the system, you are free, and you strive for what is up to you now.
I like the idea of, like, this character not being able to see anybody the way that they've decided to be seen by everybody.
100%. Yeah. Well, like, this ties into the thing that you were saying before about your whole ship being the kind of, like, the nanomachines, right?
Yeah, Echo was, and I just want to make I actually want to say this before anything else. Echo is going to be a non-binary character who uses they and them pronouns. I just wanted to get that out of the way really quick before I forget. because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So it's one of those things where it's in my head, so I just do it already.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that some people have nanites that have stopped working.
Right.
Echo is someone who was born just without them completely. And because of that has always sort of been raised as like there is something wrong with you, basically.
Right.
And especially because they come from a family that does not have this problem up until now.
Right, like the thing is, like, hey, maybe tomorrow's the day that Harmony comes back. Maybe everything is going to be fine again. But even if that happens, you don't have the nanites. So you're kind of in this weird, permanent, separate space, like this other box. And even if your parents love you or whatever, like, that's a thing that they probably aren't great about.
Yeah. So Echo generally, I don't know how much we want to get into this, is there's tension with the family stuff.
Right. Well, you're not on the ship anymore, right?
They're not. No, Echo is actually Echo's whole thing is that they are a criminal who has been like sent down to colonize the planet as a sort of punishment.
Right.
Basically, the way I see it going down is just like, well, we'll get into that later, actually. But their whole thing, I was like, I'm not going to give everything away. I've just been sitting on this for like a week because I've been like sick in bed and like it's all I could think about.
I get it.
But Echo's whole thing is that they've spent their entire life being told that something's wrong with them. They've also spent their entire life wanting to prove everybody wrong. So we talked about how on the Tides of Harmony, a lot of people have like vocations that they work for.
Yeah.
When the nanites don't work for you, you're kind of phased out of that. So there are these small communities that come up around it, and people have versions of those jobs in there.
Right.
But to be able to do that, they need things to do that with. So Echo, I think, was basically like a thief for the most part, and would bring stuff back to the slums that they lived in.
Hey, so can you have been arrested by the space game?
I want that actually a lot.
Like not because you were they wouldn't have gone after you because you happened to steal whatever you needed to make space socks or whatever, but you were the name they were given as like the thing that would connect them to a larger crime. And at the end of it, it was like, well, we got to turn you in, but we have this thing that we can give you that's like better than going to space jail.
I'm really into that. Yeah.
Okay. Me too.
Especially because Allie's character is like got kicked off the planet for crime, and I got put on it for crime.
By the way, the cop got kicked off the planet for crime and then became a cop after being kicked off a planet for being a criminal.
Like most cops.
We don't know why she left the planet yet.
Yes.
It's an
The
important
religious figure for a place that you're not from did a thing and got kicked out.
That's fine, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, anything else, Echo?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to... I said that, like, Echo's whole thing is basically trying to prove people wrong about them.
Right.
Like, they're spent basically their whole life having to fight, so they're very good at it now. And, I have, like, actual, like, one of the beliefs set already for them, which I think kind of sums up the character really well, is if someone doubts you, prove them wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one.
And that's basically kind of their whole thing summed up. I'm very excited for this game.
Me too. So what I'll say is, one of the things that is next for all of y'all is to finish your character sheets, picking moves, and then building beliefs. In this game, beliefs are very much the engine of progress, of character growth. You get XP in this game from attempting from failed rolls. When you attempt to do something good for you and you fail, there's like a very specific note. It's not just failed rolls, it's when you attempt something that benefits you and fail. So you can't just like failing rolls on purpose to grind XP. But the other way you get XP is through beliefs, and you need to write 3 of those. And If you have a belief that's tested, you get to mark 1 XP. If you get a belief that gets you into trouble, you get 2 XP. And if you resolve a belief because it's been tested and it's changed, and you get to mark 3. So that's really like a big part of your XP is going to come from those. And so between now and the end of the week, if possible, I'd love for y'all to actually sit down and come up with those beliefs. And for me, the easy way for you to do this is to have one that's just about who they are as a person. That can be the sort of one that you see getting XP every game because, like, yeah, you're going to follow that one core tenet of who they are. The second one, I would love to reflect the ship and culture that they came from, whether that is I believe in this rule and it's embodied in me, or just in relation to that rule. Like with Echo, maybe that's a specifically important thing to not just be, I follow the one rule for my ship, but like something that shows that. And the third one should be something like a bond, which is like, I believe this about this character, right? Basically write that third belief as a bond and it should work out just fine. I am me if you have questions about that stuff. I think that's going to do it for us this week. I think we've got a lot of work done. I'm just going to point to a spot on this map really quick and say where I think this game takes place, if that makes sense. I have the map that where we found where Counterweight takes place on in front of me, and I just want to add a new thing if that's okay. I think it's like here, which is like further up the same combined arm where the Sagittarius and Perseus arms connected on this specific map of the galaxy. And this one is like very close to where this arm eventually hits like the galactic circle ring, like the very core of the galaxy. And I really want that bright galactic center to be the sun. In a sense, you're close enough to the galaxy, to the galactic center, to see the bright shining white light of it from whatever ship you're in, from whatever system you're in. You can see it. You're close enough to see it, and that could be cool. So that's my suggestion there. I think that's going to do it for us. You can find me at Austin_Walker on Twitter. Where can people find everybody else? Let's start with Jack so he can go to bed.
You can find me on Twitter at NotQuiteReal and buy any of the music featured on the show at notquitereal.bandcamp.com.
Andy Clare.
You can find me on Twitter at Captain Trash.
Alicia Akampora.
Yeah, you can find me at Ali_West on Twitter, and you should go find the show at Friends_Table.
And you should go to, we have a Reddit at reddit.com/friends at the table that none of us run, but fans do.
We have a Reddit?
There's a Friends at the Table Reddit. There's a pretty active thread on the Waypoint forum threads now, forum.waypoint.vice.com or discourse.zone. Just go out there.
There's a Facebook at Facebook.com/friends table.
Yeah, so check those out
We
too.
mentioned the hashtag on Twitter too.
And also the hashtag
Friends at the Table.
Hashtag Friends at the Table. Yeah. Also, if you're ever
You
curious,
could just search Friends at the Table on Twitter, read a lot about Ed Sheeran.
You could. That's what I was going to suggest, was if you do a search for just, in quotes, Friends at the Table, and then you do a space, and then you hit -shots, you'll ignore all of the Ed Sheeran lyrics in which he talks about doing shots with your friends at the table. A thing you'll learn if you happen to search for the phrase Friends at the Table a lot. Andrew Lee Swan.
Hey, you can find me on Twitter at Swanjury3000.
Janine Hawkins.
You can find me on Twitter at Bleating Heart.
Arthur Martinez Tebble.
Hey, you can find me on Twitter at @Tebble.
And Keith Carberry.
You can find me on Twitter at Keith J. Carberry, and you can find the Let's Plays that I do at youtube.com/runbutton.
I'm so excited for this, y'all. Like, this has been already super exciting. I cannot wait to start playing these games. So stay tuned. Also, based on when this comes out, there's a Patreon that's up by now. Cut this out, Allie, if it's not up by now, but it should be based on the schedule we've set.
If it's not up, something horrible has happened. We found out that
Yeah.
one of you is a secret pirate.
Gotta go.
How would that affect the good work that we've done on this podcast? If one of us happened to maybe be a secret pirate,
I'm
how
gonna
would
Google,
that affect things?
have there ever been ethical secret pirates?
Yes, of course there have been.
You all do have to
Yes.
sign contracts under your names. Is what I'm
Okay,
saying.
let's go to time.is.
Oh, you didn't finish that.
Oh, go help us. We launched a Patreon. What we do is like pretty hard work. Like Allie spends hours and hours every week making the show into a good show. I spend hours and hours a week prepping. Jack writes this incredible music, and I talk to everybody every week before playing, and everyone's like, all I can do all week is think about what I should do in this scene that may or may not even happen. And then everyone shows up, and for 2 to 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, depending on where we're at in the season, people...
We've never recorded for only 2 hours ever.
That's not true. We've done a 2 hour. We did a 2 hour game.
did.
We did. We did this year. We did a 2 hour Hyron game twice. We managed it.
You were there.
He was there. He was there.
There's a lot of shows. 1 or 2 of them maybe were 2 hours. They don't stand out.
We leave it all out on the field. Is a thing that I've always wanted to say. But people put in a lot of work into this thing, and we love it, and we do it because we love it. Put our stiff upper lip
to the grindstone.
Put our stiff upper lip to the grindstone. And people asked us for a long time, hey, have you ever thought about doing a Patreon? Hey, is there a way that I can support you for doing it? Now there is. So you can go to our Patreon.
friendsatthetable.cash.
I'm going to drop in right now. I'm going to say where you can go to the Patreon, but we don't have the address yet. So I'll do that when we do it, and it'll go where I'm talking right now instead of the thing I'm saying right now. And
that's a really long URL you want us to get.
Yeah, I'm going to get just the longest URL I can find is the one.